down to this level. So, anyway, what's the next one? And we get into these more heavily in the Dance 4 program, too, by the way. Do I need to do this one? This is really just what we just went over. Yeah, it's just a shorter version of what we just went over, that one. Alrighty. Oh, here we go. Okay. Now, coming down, let's start with the bottom. Yeah, coming down to earth again. Now, coming back down the stairway to heaven. All right. From the Akasha Aya to the Akasha A to the Akasha to the Veka worlds. Down here, we're back into the Veka system. Here's the Eka. Well, yeah, the Eka inner system and then the Veka system. We're down here again in density 1. This is our 12-dimensional template. Now this little guy over here, here's another set of gates. This is showing you the galactic interface. All right, these are our universal gates. Right? These are the galactic gate interfaces. What that looks like in terms of our local universe or our solar system. This is our solar system here. Now science, shows us that, okay, we have the sun and we have our planets lined up in order, but they don't show you the structure that they're actually moving on, the shields that are involved that hold the planets in orbit, literally, around the sun. This Cathara grid here, this little galactic one, is this one in this diagram. Our universal gate system here, our first 12 gates of the universal system, are these here. Now if you look here, we talked about the 311 connection, where universal gate 3 in the inner Eka worlds is the same place as our universal gate 11. That connection is up here. Now, see, there's the inner Eka universe. Now if we look at this, this is like a cross-section of a bubble, of an Akasha-shaped, teardrop-shaped bubble, which represents the standing spherical scalar wave within which our entire universe exists. Our universe has a radial body around it, just like each of the density levels do. So we are in a big Akasha capsule. All right. It has, and you can look on your diagram, and we get into this more in the Dance 4 programs as well. You can see the different levels of the primal light fields, density 1, this is density 1, you have like density 2, 3, 4, and we get into the primal light fields and the primal sound fields, then the radial body, the universal radial body, which has a layer of Ire, Mane, and Manu around it. And that's what creates the void space, the radial body capsule that separates each of the universes or density levels from the other. So this is actually a cross-section of what's taking place around our solar system plane. The gates interface this way, and the gate names, the universal gate names, are on there, and they're also the gate names that were here, right? So this that shows, one is in Orion, 2 is in Epsilon Eridanus, 3 is Earth, 4 is the Sun, 5, is Alcyone, etc. That's showing how they plug into the galactic plane here. Now on this you do see 2 4s. This is the density 3, or density 1 version that we call our Sun, Universal Stargate 4. What our scientists are just starting to figure out, and they don't quite know what it means yet, is that we are actually a binary star system. There is another, what they call a dark sun, because they've seen the effects of it. It's as if there is another sun. And there's some of the underground science stuff that's coming out from physicists and things that you don't hear a whole lot about, and it won't be in textbooks in school for sure for a while. But there is a twin sun to our sun. Our sun is called Sol, S-O-L, and the twin sun is called Rabizad. It's Tara's sun. It's Alcyone's actual sun, but you can't see it from this density because it's in the next density. But they are linked directly together. They share Universal Stargate 4. So that's why you see the 2 4s, all right? And here, it's Universal Stargate 3, Universal Stargate 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now right here in the center of the Eka universe, right between there 6 and 7 universal gates, that's the center point again. That's where the Amareya flame anchors into their system from way up above. In the same configuration that we saw before, the 12 Ruche pillars, they also anchor through each Cathara grid all the way down in the same configuration. So the Cathara grid itself is literally the map to understanding the underlying structure of all creation and of manifestation and demanifestation. Now, this at least starts to give us an idea of what all this means in terms of what we already know is there from what our science is teaching us and from what the Hubble has taken, spacecraft, Hubble thing has taken pictures of in outer space. It shows our gate alignments, and we've gone through those before when we listed the galactic gates going out. It shows a void space, which is the density 1 void. This is where science can send way out into outer space, and it can go way out past the seeming perceivable boundaries of our solar system. Can go way, 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 way out into space, but it's going to boomerang back unless it goes through a gate or a lock. So it may look like you can send things out, like, to the Sirius system and the whole bit. You can in this density, but you're not going to get up into the full expression of those systems until you cross the void space, which is the radial body space in between each one of the density levels. So there's literally a harmonic universe radial body, or a density level radial body here. There's another one here, another one here, another one here, another one here. We have all those little ones inside the big universal radial body. The radial bodies are literally like the skin that surrounds the three-dimensional inner bodies, which are called a Hoover body. Now, three-dimensional spherical, elliptical sphere body, like what your auric field is called a Hoover body. Around the Hoover body is the radial body skin. The radial body is also referred to sometimes as the Tryon-Miage field. That has to do with the names of the particles that the energy is composed of, what kind of particles, just like we have protons and neutrons and those kind of things. We'll talk, when we get into the biology, we'll go into a little bit of understanding that each of these type of currents, or the 15 rays that we talk about, each of those interdimensional currents, actually have a particle, or a type of particle, that is the carrier of that force. And it starts with protons, neutrons, and electrons down here. They have their density 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. expressions, and they have different names. The Tryon-Miage field refers to the density 4 expressions. So we have literally, our radial body has the Ire field, which is the Miage field. That would be the base sound field, which would be magnetic. We have the Manet field. That would be the base electrical or light field. That's called the Tryon field because of the units it's composed of. And then we would have the Manu field, which is the void field, which is actually a magnetic repulsion zone that keeps it away, because each density level has one of these around it, so they actually push each other away. To get from one density to another, what you're doing is actually opening the radial body, or transmuting your radial body so you can move through it into the next expansion level up. So there's a lot that the physics of this is fascinating, and we're just learning the physics of it. You don't need to understand the physics of things. It helps to understand that it does plug into the physics of things, so you realize it's real and not just, off the cuff somebody's fluffy, weird ideas about reality. But if we can just understand that we have these the universe is encapsulated by this radial body, and it has different levels of density manifestation within it. This is the same configuration in our own bodies, in our own beings, because we're microcosmic reflections of the macrocosm. And the anatomy of the cosmos, or of the universe, also applies to our own bodies. Now with this, it just helps to know that these little flat maps that we're looking at with Cathara grids showing the stairway to heaven, can take them back to their easiest point, which is the Cathara grid, which are stargates, as we talked about, and this is how they plug in to our system. All right, universal, galactic gates, and the inner Eka gates. If we ever need to, or are invited to, come into the inner Eka universe, the first stop would be inner Earth, because that would be the direct connection to this, the easiest connection to this planet. We would be taken up through this whole gate chain, and some of us would actually be able to ride the Gamma ray of flame all the way up through gate 12. That's what we're being trained for, with activating the flame bodies. Others that couldn't fully activate a flame body would be taken through the 311 gate connection. And they would go literally into this, this 311 gate connection exists in the same place, their gate 3 is in the same place as our gate, universal gate 11, which is Lyra Avion, which our scientists call that Shiliak, I think is pronounced something like that, S-H-I-E-L-A-K, I believe it is on the star charts. So we would literally be going from Earth through the gate chain up into the Lyra star system, which means we would pass through the Pleiades with gate 5, we'd pass through Sirius with gate 6, we'd pass through Arcturus with gate 7, we'd pass through Orion with gate 8, we'd pass through Andromeda with gate 9, we'd pass through Vega with gate 10, and we would pass through into gate 11 or gate 12 into the Lyra system. Now, not everybody will go through the whole set of gates. There are several gate options depending on the frequency that you can carry in your template, depending on your shields and what they can do. The easy evac route is the 311 connection going up from universal gate 3 that's in Earth's core, going up the 3, 6, 9, and then over to 11 connection. There's a path that's called the path of Amareya, which is the path of the flame body, that is the 3, 6, 9, 12 connection. Each of these gates up here, there's a universal level of them in the Eka universe, and there's also planetary levels of them. We're going to be, the people that we're talking to right now are from Earth in this system, or Earth's counterpart in this system, which is, it's called a different planetary name, but I can never pronounce it. Aramateni? It's a combination between the word Aramatena and Amenti, and they recently gave it to us, so I just call it the Earth that's up there. Let's refer to it as inner Earth. Inner Eka Earth. All right. So we will be aiming for the planet in the Eka system that is inner Earth, the counterpart there to Earth here, to Earth Terra Gaia, Aramatena here, and that place has a set of planetary gates. Yeah, there are 12 planetary gates as well. Each of those houses one crystal pylon temple that I talked about, like those big crystals that we saw the picture of, except they're massive compared to the size of those little guys that were in the pictures here. Those are very sacred temples, and they're temples that are guarded by the Iani priests, and guarded but also run by. They are the ones who run and operate the Templar. If there's any problems, they know how to run the energy, they know how to put codes in. They don't need like computers. They are like computers. They literally they communicate directly with these crystals, the consciousness that these crystals is. And through that communication, they relay the mathematical information that is needed. And they do it in pictures and in sounds. So the temples, the crystal pylon temples, exist on the equivalent of Earth in the inner Eka system. And the first place we would see coming through, if we were coming through the 311 gate connection, would be their gate 3 inner Earth temple, and that's called the Temple of Agartha. And some people have heard of that word before. Agartha is the name that has been used, referring to, inner Earth is Agartha. No, inner Earth is not Agartha. Agartha is one location, one geographical location on the inner Eka planet that's equivalent to Earth. There's another temple, and it is the temple we're aiming for if it ever needs to, if we need to evac. The ones that are activating flame body will go in through here. They literally come up through the Amareya flame. We go out through our gate 12, which is Aramatena, Lyra double, and come up literally through the Amareya flame. That is called the Temple of Kemelohati. Now, the words Kemelohati got twisted up in our language down here in our translations of history as Camelot. So the whole Camelot story and all of that, I mean, we've given workshops on this stuff before, where we explain the whole King Arthur drama, how that was connected to the Christ drama, how that was all connected to this, and how the Knights of the Round Table were doing rainbow round tables. The round table was the configuration that was used when we do Merkaba in groups with very specific mathematical relationships between the bodies in order to run the Templar. So the Temple of Kemelohati is where we would be aiming to come up. We would come up through their lock as opposed to coming up through a gate. We'd go through our gate 12, universal gate 12, and come up through their central lock where the Amareya flame is. Now, that's a very specialized path, the path of Amareya. That is the path of the masters. Any of the fallen black hole guys can't touch that at all because they fry if they get anywhere near D12 frequency. Now, they've been trying very hard to break through here. They've been trying to attack the inner Earth system for ages, and they made some success. They had recently tried, in fact, in the end of July, they tried another attack. They're trying to get control of Gate 3 in the inner Eka, because if they do, they can block if they destroy it, they can block our ability to run the Amareya flame down in to bring in the Ruche pillars to give the support to this system so it can't fall. But they lost. And their attack, I mean, it's kind of funny. Attack implies somebody's fighting you back, but the Iani don't need to. They just simply hold their ground and hold their fields and hold the field of the temple they're in. And because those fields are so strong, as long as the Iani are doing their jobs, they don't have to fight anybody. They don't have to raise a hand to anybody in defense because nothing can harm them. And as long as they know that and they don't, and they remember that that's what they're there to do, it's kind of futile to attempt to attack them. But the guys from the black hole figure it's still worth a try. And they did. By doing this, though, is what created the interesting drama that we'll talk about more so tomorrow that has to do with the truce of loving mercy, where because they tried to attack that and they assumed they could get a hold of it and they weren't able to, their little beast is now going to bite them. And they need our, so they need our help, and boy, they're not happy about it at all. So it's not a friendly truce. It's not like, oh, okay, we'll be friends now, kiss and make up. No, it's like, we hate your guts. We should just go away, But we'd love to destroy you, but would you please help us out of this little problem? Yeah, then we'll destroy you. This is the mentality we're dealing with. I mean, they're genius level. You think they'd be able to figure some other things out, but without an emotional body or the ability to plug into D12, to the Christos consciousness, it's harder than you think. You can be brilliant, but you can't feel. And if you can't feel, there's huge amounts of things you just can't comprehend. Because most of existence, particularly the higher you go, isn't about thinking. It's about direct cognition and feeling and knowing it and becoming it. So anyway, this is our gate system as it appears in our universe. And all of these things is how they link together with this. There's something else on top there. Oh yeah, I want the little thing of inner earth, I think. Yeah. Here's another way. Easy. Another little thing just helps you understand the relationship. This isn't that important, but it helps you understand the relationship between this is our Kathara grid, right, in our universal gate system. This is the parallel one. Now this isn't the angles that they're interfacing at. The angles were down here, right? Like the actual map of them. But this is showing the frequency ranges. So it shows you that like the frequencies are actually a bit offset where the parallel dimension 1 is. It's actually, if this is the dimension 1 spectrum, look at it, it's halfway in the dimension 1 and halfway in the dimension 2 spectrum of inner Earth. Come over there and it's halfway in our, wait a minute, let me try that again. This is basically showing, I'm not going to get into this right now, but this is basically showing the purpose of this graph is to show you with the gate systems that run through each one, our universal, the parallel universal, and the inner echo one. There's a frequency offset between each one of them. It also gets into angular rotation of particle spin, the angles upon which particles rotate, which has to do with the angle your Merkaba field is going to rotate in order to go through gates, and also has to do with literally the axis that your atoms and electrons and things spin on. So this is detail, again. It's detail that there's even more on this kind of stuff in the Masters Planetary Stewardship Initiative course book. So if you want more on this kind of stuff, you could research that material. But it's just there to show that this is another way of looking at the frequency offset. But here's the actual mapping. Here's how it looks in relation to the galactic plane or the solar system plane as we know it, and here's how it looks on the maps. So basically, these are the maps that show us how we got down here in the first place, which also shows us how we can get back. And let's see, what's next? I want to get to anatomy. Oh yeah, this is the closer up one. It's a little easier to see. And again, it's just showing our universal gate system going up. The ecosystem, it's not, you can't see all of them. It's like it goes off the page, but you see their number, their gate 1, 2, this would be their gate 3. Their gate 4 would be over here, and that interfaces with the 11 gate in the parallel, our parallel system, because our parallel system will be over there. We're down here, that's the parallel dimensional system, that's our light field, and the parallel light field will be up this way on this diagram. And this is our galactic interface, okay? Somebody say something? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, next please. I don't think I need that one, do I? No, I'm not going to go through that one. No, that's not that important for this. Yeah, we'll just put that one. And this brings it home just a little further, putting all little pieces together, where, again, that's the one we just looked at with our universal gates and our galactic gates, etc. That's showing the gate locations again. Here is showing the gates on Earth, the gates and the Q sites, and I believe, can you move that up just a little, honey? Yeah, so I can see the bottom parts here. Yeah, the gates are the circles, and the X's are the Q sites. And remember, the Q sites are the interface system that was put in so literally our stargates could be run from the inner ecosystem of inner Earth. So the planet that is Earth's equivalent in the inner Eka universe is the planet that is used to control our Templar here until it's fixed, so it doesn't blow the planet up, because there were times when this planet almost completely imploded because of misuse or damage to the Templar. So we have the Q sites and the gate sites, and then where they're located. This is what it looks like technically. Now, this changes all the time. This is one of those little, from like a star map book, where they do the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, and they show you where all the constellations are and all that stuff. And of course it always changes with the times of year, that kind of thing. This is just like freeze framing one period of time, but showing you in which constellations you would find them. Now, it doesn't make a Cathara grid shape, right? It would be interesting. I've been tempted to, and we don't have the time right now, but to build a model, right, a three-dimensional model of an Akasha teardrop shape, right, and try to make the star maps out of that, knowing the positionings. It could be really interesting to take one of these and turn it into an Akasha shape, so you could actually see the curve, the universal curve, and how it fits into the thing. But this basically gives you the location. If you're a person, and I'm not one of these because my distance vision is terrible, but people that like to do the stargazing and they know, and they can look up and name the constellations and things, you can, by knowing where these gates are in relation to those constellations, whatever time of year it is, if you can find the constellation, you can identify where the gate is. This might get interesting as we move along, because we may be seeing some activity of some sort here and there with the Amaria Arc project, and also the flaming blue sword from hell coming through. I mean, I don't think we're going to see flaming blue swords from hell coming, flashing through the sky, coming down our gate system. But I get a feeling between now and probably between now and 2012, I think there's going to be some interesting activity in the sky, and other than wormwood coming in and that kind of thing that we may want to watch. So this was put in there just to kind of anchor it all, so you see where we went all the way up to the top, and then the stairway to heaven, then all the way back down. It brings us right back down through the star, back down to Earth. All right, they're all linked together, and it's all part of one huge cosmic system, and we're all a part of that. So that gets us through context. The next part is where our bodies fit in, really. I guess I'll do that one now. Okay, yeah, I'll do this now. I was tempted to do that later, but I guess I will. Yeah, we'll do it now. Okay, and since we found out where all that stuff is, where the heck are these black hole things? All right. Now, again, here's our universal Vecca map, right? This is our 12-dimensional system, our primal light field. This is our parallel 15-dimensional, the 12 dimensions of the 15-dimensional parallel system, and their parallel light fields. Now, this is the axis that our system runs on, right? This is the axis that the parallel system is running on. See these little X's that come through here? These are the axis interfaces of the wormholes, the wormhole systems. The original wormhole system was called Phantom Matrix, and Phantom Matrix had fallen from our system, from our 15-dimensional system, had fallen from up in this area, and it was allowed to remain open. That's the one that the founders races decided they would allow to remain open to see if they could heal as much of it as possible. There were healing experiments done, one of which involved what was called a host matrix. A host matrix is where, let's say you have one group of beings, a race that fell, and you want to try to help it, which is called bioregenesis, regenerating the biotemplate so the consciousness can get back in body and not be twisted anymore, so you can heal the race. Well, there is another matrix that over here. Remember, this is us down here. Okay, here we are back into the Akasha Aya. That's the top one. This shows, first of all, where we are. All right, that's our little Vecca system down in there. This is our Akasha A, and that's our that's our Akasha. That's our Akasha A, and this is the Akasha A. Over here, in a different Akasha A quadrant completely, there is another matrix, another set of 15-dimensional systems that their races decided they would try to help, and they offered to take some of the ones who had fallen from the black hole, the phantom black hole here, over to bioregenerate them in their matrix. And it was allowed, and when that occurred, they were warned not to do certain things, that it wouldn't work, it wouldn't heal, it would potentially damage their race and make something bad happen there. And they didn't listen, and they decided to try it anyway. And this is where the Wiesedics became involved. This over here is the Wiesedic black hole system. They took beings, these weren't fallen to begin with, they took beings from our fallen matrix to try to heal them, and they hosted them in to their galactic template, which means they had to put some of our coding, for our mathematical coding for our matrix, into their matrix in order to have something that was alive in this matrix be able to be alive in that matrix. They hosted them in, and they tried several types of hybridization experiments with their own races, trying to regenerate the fallen ones. But what happened instead is it backfired, and it degenerated theirs, and it turned them into progressively more warring type beings until they imploded their own system, imploded part of their own system, and they created their black hole. What they did from that point on was they began to take the coding, partially from our matrix, partially from theirs, and they forced the templates, they began to force the templates together. They began to plug into phantom matrix by using the mathematical codings that they got from here in the first place, but to have this race come over. They began to use those to create an artificial bond, to literally take part of this template that was fallen, part of the partially fallen template from phantom, and create a new template, a new creation. They were trying to create, literally, a new cosmic structure. They were going to create their own cosmic shield. They were going to be masters of the universe. And that mathematical program was called the Metatronic bond. It's a base 8 reverse Metatronic system. They're aiming to make it a base 11.5 reverse system. We'll get into Metatron a little bit more tomorrow, where that name comes from. Because once upon a time, it was an entity that was working with the healing experiments, and it was part of the races that fell in our time matrix. They were out of that family of consciousness, and several experiments were done to try to, by the Metatron collective. It is a collective of consciousness in, I believe it was in it was in the triadic level of the primal sound fields. And when it lost part of its own consciousness to the fall in our matrix, it sent more portions of itself in to try to help and to try to assist them. Also sent portions of itself over here to try to assist the ones that were being bioregenerated, and it got so many parts of itself down into manifestation in the fallen systems that the entity itself fell. And it was the entity collective called Metatron that decided to create the beast and to create this entire apparatus by which that collective could become the new God, the external God. This is a very old, ancient drama that took place. I believe, it's in the writing somewhere, I think it was about 150 billion years ago when the Metatron entity fell and the beginnings of the beast were set in motion. So, as far as geography goes, looking at our maps, this is how the phantom matrix here, no wait, this one, let me see which one's which. I always get confused looking at these. That's phantom. All right, this axis coming through here, now they would have a Stargate system, right? They'd have a Cathara grid too. It's a twisted one. It's like distorted. But phantom matrix Cathara grid was had a different angle. It normally was part of ours, but when it fell, it went into this angle, interfacing with ours through that central lock, which is where the Amareya comes up. The Wiesedic matrix interfaces this way. And what they're trying to do is take this axis and this axis and pull them all in to the Wiesedic axis, which means pull the three Cathara grids together, which would rip us out of our primal light fields and down into their black hole system. I mean, it's an ingenious, diabolical plan, but it's just the mechanics of it. The more they've revealed on the mechanics, I sit there going, oh my God. I'm glad the good guys like us, because you can look at the scope of some of this, and I don't even know a science fiction writer who could come up with stuff this good. So, and you look and say, oh my God, and we're these little people here, and maybe we're big avatars that forgot, and we're still sleeping down here, and we're supposed to fix this? I can't even do calculus, Fortunately, we have a lot of friends in high places that are holding the knowledge for us until we can get the knowledge back in our bodies. We have what we need, and we're being given what we need to remember the most important things, which comes down to what are our bodies? How do our flame bodies, what are our flame bodies? How do they plug into all of this? How do our bodies, our beings, plug in to this massive universal structure? Now, before we go off the black hole subject, just because we're still on geography, all right, we're again over here. This is our little Veka space. This is our coordinates within the Akasha Aya cosmic map. This is the Wisadek black hole system right in there. And they're interfacing at these angles with us and with parallel. See, this is not just a problem of our 12 dimensions. They're also doing it with parallel, which means if they were successful, they would not just take down our system. They would take down its parallel as well. They would take the whole Veka. And if they took the Veka, it would take the core as well. That's what they're after. They're after the power that would be held within the core inner Eka universe. So they're trying to take these two down, which would make the whole thing collapse in on itself, and it would pull the whole thing down. Now, it's a crazy plan, because nobody's going to get away with that. I mean, the matrix itself was built to be perpetual life, which means if something's getting really out of whack in itself, it's going to heal it. It will run energy in order to clear it, and that's what they've set up for themselves. They are going to clear themselves. They're going to clear their own virus out of the system if they're not careful, except because of the path, though, because of the truce they decided to enter, the truce of loving mercy, at least they will get about 2 billion years more of experiential evolution in their matrix instead of instantaneous zap, because they were headed for space dust with what they did with the beast. And the fact that they couldn't take over the inner Earth temple that they needed to block the Amaraya arcs that are going to come in. That's part of the automatic autopilot system. All right? If this matrix gets in too much danger, these gates open automatically. It's not that the Iani are making them open. Now, if something goes wrong, the Iani have the ability to modulate them and to close them if something goes wrong. But they're not making the decision to open them. This stuff's coming down from up high. All right, the consciousness of Source itself is making that decision. But it was built into the matrix to do that anyway. So, anyway, these frequencies are going to be coming down. We'll talk about the Amaraya Arc project probably more tomorrow. But I just wanted to see where we are. If you look at it in terms of those universal bubbles, all right, the bubbles within bubbles within bubbles, the little Akasha-shaped bubbles, ours is over here. Their black hole is over here. And they're trying to splice in theirs through Phantom into ours. Now, Phantom was part of ours that fell, but they're trying to literally they have made a wormhole. That wormhole is called the Path of Arimathea. All right, it is a wormhole, a forced opening between two bubbles that don't belong there. It is a forced opening between gate systems that don't belong there. There's a long story that is quite well capsulized in the text that you have there that we'll probably read a bit tomorrow of, that explains some of how this took place. What they're forming over in the Wisadek matrix, or what they're attempting to finish building, is this structure here. And I think it's what do I have next on the flippers? Oh, I'm going into anatomy there. Okay. Tomorrow, oh yes, for tomorrow, I have the big one. I have a bigger graph of this that we'll show tomorrow. This is called the black cube matrix, where they're literally creating, by splicing in, trying to splice in our Cathara grid, universal Cathara grid, the Phantom universal Cathara grid, and the Wisadek universal Cathara grid. They're splicing them all together and artificially bonding them through the Metatronic bond through 4 primary universal implants that are called the 4 black hearts of Metatron. There's also a bunch of little other implant lenses that refract and bend energy in ways it's not supposed to be bent that are called the Metatronic eyes. Now, these manifest on a universal level, which implies that they also manifest within every planetary Cathara grid. If they're in the universal Cathara grid and shield, they will manifest in all of the smaller shields going all the way down, including our personal ones. So everything on this planet is partially Metatronic because of it. Now, and everything in the sun and all the way up the chain. What they're ideally trying to do is activate all of these hearts. I didn't color them black here, but they're the black hearts of Metatron. These are already activated. All they need to do is finish activating the final one, which was the last one they put in. This is the one that connects directly into our Earth system. once that heart becomes beating, and this is what the flaming blue sword frequencies are intended to do. They are to fully activate the full set of currents, of D13 reverse currents, that will activate the implants here, that will create the progressive reversal of the mathematical coding in all of our shields, and making them able to be pulled in to the black hole system. And what they're trying to create is a twisted, see, create your own Kathara grid. It's kind of like they saw God do it, so they figured they could too. Well, they're doing a good job of trying. But it's a reverse matrix. Look at the numbering on it. All right. Ours, 1 is down here, and 12 is up here where it plugs into 13 and up in the next one. They don't have a 12 or a 13. They have 11 dimensions that run not only flipped over left to right, but upside down as well. And it is an electrostatic system, which means it can't bring in new life force energy. And it doesn't have a circulatory system except unto itself and except for this here. This is the splicing in. We can move this up a little, honey, please. This graph down here shows the hearts. It shows a couple of them. It doesn't go all the way up because this is only 2 densities. See, dimension 1, 2, 3, dimension 4, 5, 6. This is showing 2 densities worth of the splice, but it gives you the idea. Here's 1 black heart implant in density 1, 1 density 2. It's forcing a bond between their frequency bands and the frequency bands of phantom that are connected to the frequency bands of our system. Now, this is the heart that they're trying to activate now, the final density. If they do that, the whole series of the black heart implants come fully awake. The beast fully wakes up from the sword. And that is when the whole apparatus is set in motion, where wormwood comes up to make things turn this way, and that makes things turn this way, and it flips it over and pulls it all down, which we'll talk about more tomorrow. It's a bit technical as far as what exactly are they trying to do. This is where you get to see how the incredible, twisted, but incredibly genius-level creativity that was involved with this program. These are master scientists to figure any of this out. Our scientists look like, babies compared. I was thinking of littering idiots, but I didn't want to insult anyone, Yeah, because if I were going to be anything besides what I am, I probably would have become a scientist. So I have nothing against scientists at all. But anyway, now this is beginning to show us some things that we're going to see also in relation to our personal bodies. But this is showing a bit on the universal level, where this would be, on this side, the natural structure of the radial bodies that surround each harmonic universe. All right? There's a specific structure of radial body. You have your Huva body inside, and then you have a field of what is called the Eros energy, and then you have the Miage field, which is the sound field on the inside, the Trion field, the light field on the outside, and then outside of that you have what's called the Rheon field, or the Manu field, void, that is the skin around it. That's the normal structure of a radial body. What the beast mess does, or the black heart implants do, is they create an artificial electrostatic field. Now, if these fields were acting normally, there would be open passage. There's a little, like a set of seals here, or crystal seals, that open and close, that allow frequency and energy and consciousness to pass between densities. That's what ascension would be. It creates this apparatus of the implants, as they work in the planetary bodies, in the universal body, and in our own bodies, creates an artificial electrostatic field in various parts of the radial body, which blocks the natural flow of frequency, and it blocks the ability to fully move things through stargates from one density level to another. It inverts the Trion Miage field, putting the magnetic sound field on the outside with the light field on the inside. And what that does is create a sucking field, and it shuts off the Manu field completely. So it doesn't have a void field around it. It has a magnetic sound field on the outside of the part of our planetary and universal radial body has this problem now. Part of it's functioning this way, the twisted way, part of it's functioning the natural way. But what this does is create an energy-sucking vehicle. Base magnetic Ire frequency, which is the drawing in frequency. This part of the radial body is doing at this point is it's sucking energy from the ecosystems and what's above it, what it's placed within, and it's sending it into this containment field, this electrostatic suspension field that is called the NET. It's called the Nibiruan Electrostatic Transduction Field. And feeds it into the net, and then there are feeding tubes that literally transfer the energy out into the phantom matrix, and through the phantom matrix into the Wisedex. So they're feeding off our system on a universal level right now. And this configuration, just like this is, when we look at the Cathara grids, they are you can look at them on the universal level or the cosmic level as the macrocosm, but you can also take that same structure all the way down to the microcosm. So these things that are affecting the macrocosmic grids in our universe are affecting every microcosmic grid as well, which means we have an electrostatic field in our fields that doesn't belong there. And that's what's blocking our memory, and that's what's blocking our ability to astral project properly. That's what's blocking our ability to die properly if we're going to do that. So we're going to get into the anatomy on a personal level of what all this mess means in terms of our bodies, because it's our bodies themselves that are, just like the universe, a self-healing mechanism, if we remember what to do with them. And that's what the techniques that we're going to be moving through today. We'll probably, instead of like totally wiping everybody out with frequency today, the 7 techniques, we'll break them up between today and tomorrow, so you get some of them tomorrow as well. But you will get them all before you go. And then there's 2 techniques after those that we can't do here because you need to wait 4 to 6 weeks after these. Once you get to the point where you're on technique 8, you don't ever have to do any of the other ones before it again if you don't want to. They're long, like some of them, to go through. But once you get through them once, you don't have to, unless you want to, for amplification, use them again as meditations. You would just use technique 8, and it turns out to where you have one a bit longer, like put on the headphones meditation per week, and one really quick, like 6-step real quick thing that you can do in like 2 seconds once you learn how to do it, that will keep the flame bodies activated. The flame bodies are stronger frequency even than the Maharic seal, and they will keep the Maharic seal perpetually activated. So yeah, so people who've been working with these technologies and have been painstakingly doing the Maharic seal for the last year or 2, which can get really tiring after a while, finally we'll be able to get it to stay up without, because if you don't keep re-energizing it, it would always go back down again. You have to pull it back up again, and so the techniques we're moving toward a simplification of the program, but what? She said, no, I wouldn't call it. I just said I wouldn't call it that. All right, so it's not a simplification of the program. What is it? Good word. What? All right, you say it's not a simplification. It's a consolidation. I have a feeling there's more to come on that. I don't know why he's playing with me these days. Yeah, I have a feeling there's going to be a time when the 3 of us are talking together and we're just like, until he learns how to, well, he knows how to beam in, but he can't do that right now. Anyway, get on to anatomy. Yes, I will get on to anatomy. This is the mess we're dealing with on the universal level. So this isn't just an earthly problem. This isn't a little problem. This picture is so big and this drama is so big, it's almost mind-blowing. It seems like it's actually good that it is so big, because it seems so big that it's almost not real. You just kind of sit there slightly shocked and go, okay. Whoa, it's worse than the Stephen King novel. It's like, my goodness. I mean, Stephen King writes some really cool stuff with a lot of detail. He's like, if you like horror, he does really good detailed stuff, some of it. And this is just like even bigger than anything he's come up with yet. So, anyway.
The 60s introduced the word mind expanding.
Mind expanding, yes. Back to that. Back to simple, simple, simple. This is just to remind you that exists, okay? Now we're going to go into how this 15-dimensional system with the, your divine blueprint, your primal light fields, primal sound fields, how you plug into this on a personal level, how your body plugs into it. We can whip through most of these rather quickly. This one will take a minute or 2, but most of these are things most people have seen, and if you haven't, even going through them quick will be enough. Now we talked about the primal life force currents. There's another way to show that, the 2 Cathara grids. Each Cathara center represents one of the 15 rays, or one of the 15 primal life force currents. And this diagram, I'm not sure if this is in your books or not. I'm not sure, because again, I'm bopping between them just to fill in blanks. I'm bopping between the 2 programs, even though we're not doing Full Dance for Life. I don't think that's in this one. Is it in there? Oh, that's good. Oh, it is. Oh, we did get it in there. Oh, did we? Yeah, we did. I'm so glad. Yep, that one's on page 32 in your books, in a different context completely. All right. So this is just to show you the. This has a huge amount of information on it. It's like an at-a-glance chart to remember all the stuff that you're never going to remember otherwise. That's what I put it together for me, because I couldn't remember all the things that went with it. Now, I remember how I said that each one of those dimensional currents, the 15 dimensionalized currents, would be here, and these are the sound field currents, right? Now, each of these currents has a sound tone, and it is the carrier, a base carrier of one of the three primal forces. There's also something that we'll get into in a little bit when we show the atom. Okay, anybody that's seen the atom picture knows what I'm talking about. We talk about, see, here's some identifiable words. Protons. Okay, protons are the carrier of the energy called chi, right? That is the D1 energy, and it actually has Manu, Mane, and Ire force combined in it, but it is a primary, what is that? A primary, I forget what it is. I think it's a primary Mane. Wait, no, primary Mane current. Yeah, Mane, yeah. I get lost on that one because of the three. Yeah. Yeah, this would be a no, wait a minute, it's a primary Ire. That is a primary Ire current. This is a primary Manu current, and that is a primary Mane current. That's how that works. So the Ire is the dominant one, and protons are the carrier of the chi energy. The ki energy, Ki, different tonal signature, is the carrier of the Mane energy, and electrons are the units that are carrying that. So these are things like, oh, science knows about those, right? Then there's the D3 energy, the D3 ray, the third ray, which is called the Rei, R-E-I. It's a Rei sound, like Reiki. This is where the Reiki thing comes from. You know, there's different combinations of these tones that actually show up in words here. And like when you talk about chi and ki, some of the Oriental systems were aware, used those words to define primal life course energies, but they didn't realize that they were part of a whole much bigger system that involves, like all of these rays, not just those couple. So here we have the D3 frequencies, or the third ray, which is called the ray. That's the tonal translation of it. Neutrons are the primary carriers of that, and it is a primary Manu energy. Now you go up to density 2. These are the density 2 currents, dimension 4, 5, and 6 currents, or rays. You have the prana, the mana, not mane, but mana, and treya. You have different particles here. You have myons, dions, and ionons. Ionons are density 2 neutrons. Dions are density 2 electrons. And myons are density 2 protons. See how this works going all the way up? Now we have, again, up here, we'd have density 3, D9, 8, and 7 current, the Yana, the Maya, and the Mira. Yana, Maya, Mira. All right. These are called rayons, which are density 3 neutrons. All right. The dimension 8 current is the Maya. These are called ectrons, bless you, which are density 3 electrons. And over here you have the Mira, the D7 current. They're called irons, which are density 3 protons. So see how you read this chart?
Are you facing out the red dot?
Red dots.
Oh, I think it's. You got back up. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't realize. I can hardly see it anyway. Thank you. Thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to wear down your pointer. Yeah, there we go. Wow, I never saw anybody so happy over a red dot. And the crowd cheers. Red dot comes on board. No. So I don't need to read every one of these all the way up because you have eyes and a brain and a book, right? I just wanted you to see how to read those, where you have the name of the ray, which is the vibrational sonic translation of its vibration that can be audible translation. There are certain techniques we use in the dance floor programs excuse me, where we use literally the combinations of the sounds to call on the specific rays. If you want to call in the Manu frequencies, the Manu force, the carriers of the Manu are the 3, 6, 9, and 12. So you would use the Re and the Treya and the Yana and the Ma'a sound tones, right? The sound tones activate in your shield the corresponding ray frequency. It's that easy. So a lot of the work that's done when we get into like more of the heavy work, it's not part of this. This is the quick override program, or the 7 techniques that you're going to be learning here. People that want to fill in frequencies and make it all happen faster, that want to get involved with the Dance 4 programs that do the Veka codes, or we work with Veka codes. We do the symbol inductions with the tones, and it's progressively activating more and more of the scalar waves in your shields. And we literally call the ray names, use them and sing them to bring more of those particular rays or frequencies into the body. Now, tomorrow we'll play with that a little bit more when we get into talking about nodes and power nodes and things, which have to do with your shield as part of the shield sciences, and learning to balance the energies that are coming in. There's a test that's absolutely really cool that Ma'a and Az have put together. It was introduced on the Bermuda trip, but we never got to put it anyplace else. But they were asking for it in Phoenix, but we didn't have it for that workshop. It's going to be in this one, and it helps you to identify what primary frequencies you're running, like your template is running. Are you, more Mane, more Ire, more Manau, and whatever it is, how to begin balancing those. Because the more balanced the frequencies are in the body, the more rapidly your whatever activations you're trying to do in your shield will happen. Because if your shield is out of balance with its energies, it'll shut down until it rebalances. So you'll be working technique and it'll shut down again because something's out of balance. So learning about the power nodes, as they're called, which are points in the shield that hold the specific frequencies, and knowing how to begin working with them to balance the energies in the shield is very useful too. We'll be doing that tomorrow. But this chart, this is like a save your life chart for me anyway, because I would never remember all the names, because it's not just the 12. It goes all the way up. Can we pull that up down low, honey, please? Yeah. It goes all the way up here. So you've got your primal grid too, the currents that are your Ki Ra-She, the Ki Ra-She currents of the primal light fields, or the Kun Da Re currents of the primal sound fields. So it literally names them all, and these little crossbars you see are the sound tones you get when you combine the two. They're actually the sound tones that combine these two. So you could you see if you combine the Ta'a and the Maya, you get Maya Ta'a. If you want to call on these two frequencies, they would be the string of tones that you would use. So this is the beginning of the keys to learning how to run very specific frequencies in your shields. We need more information and more knowledge to get very specific on our shields. We're just getting into the shields level of the science. There's a lot of other things we need to go through first, was understanding the basic fact that we had shields, what they are, where they pop out on the body, how they connect to Merkaba fields, where does that all fit in, where does that fit in with DNA. So those are the most important things, and that's what we'll cover in the anatomy today, because that will build you up to where you can understand where the flame body is, where the radial body is, and that's where you can find out where the shadow is. And when you find out where the shadow is, then when you use the techniques to heal the shadow and to activate the flame bodies, they'll make sense. Because if we run the techniques without giving you, showing you how the anatomy fits together, you're like, whatever I did, whatever, okay. It won't, the mental body will kind of phase on it, because you won't know. It'll phase out on it. All right, whatever. And that means you're not anchoring it through the D3 mental body, which means you're not anchoring it through the third Kathara center in the body, which means you're not anchoring it through the third DNA strand, which means you're not anchoring the frequency of it. All right? So we need to understand, part of the techniques itself is understanding the information that goes with it, understanding the parts. Some people say that there's been a lot of moaning about history, because sometimes we get extensively into history. Do we have to do the history? The history is part of the technique. Understanding it is literally, if you look at the words on the paper that are the history, they are a whole sequence, a block of frequency. It's restoring the original frequency that was in the radio body by bouncing it back out here. We see it as history, but it's actually the actual records. We're waking up the actual records in our bodies. So the same thing with stuff like this. When we're when we learn the base knowledge that we need on a 3D level, when you do involve the mental body, unlike some of those spiritual traditions that tell you to, oh, leave the ego alone, that's just ignore that and go spiritual. You're not going to go spiritual unless you bring your ego along with you. The ego needs to learn and absorb it if you're going to get any of that frequency or that knowledge or that consciousness into the rest of your body. Now, the ego is considered the dimension 3 mental body, all right? The part of your consciousness focused in dimension 3. That's the part that you know that looks out at the world here. You have another part at dimension 2, and that's called your emotional body. That's your dimension 2 expression of self, but it's the part of you that communicates through you to the thing you call feeling, the feeling emotional body. It's also called your elemental body, because it's the part of you that's actually manifesting as the chemicals that your body, the chemicals and units of our particles that your body is made out of. So it's the emotional elemental body at D2, and then you have the physical atomic body at D1. All of these are parts of your consciousness manifesting in different forms that collectively form what you know as you when you look in the mirror. So, anyway, we go back to the, see, our tangent went over that way. I brought myself back this time. Yeah. Yeah. So this chart will always be useful if you're going to work with frequencies because it lets you know the tones. It also gives you the added detail that you don't have to know that's about the particles, all right? Like what are the names of the units in those? Like we have electrons, neutrons, and protons here. They're actually the primary carriers of the Manu, Mene, and Ire, the electrons, protons, and neutrons, but they have different names each density level you go up. So it's, if you can realize that when you see the three listed here, the three different particle names, they're actually talking about neutrons, electrons, and protons, on that density level, or on that primal light field level, or on that primal sound field level. So this gives you kind of a consolidated bunch of information. It also gets into stuff over here on DNA strands in indigo children that I'm not going to touch right now. It'll take me another 3 days. So that's there for interest for the moment. Eventually, this graph will be used for more extensive things. See, it's really funny. The way the drama has been going, with the politics behind the scenes involved here, we'd be in the middle of a project, and say the project had another book and a half to go on it, which would say maybe another 3 months' work. All of a sudden, something went down with the drama, where we had to have a new block of information so we would understand how to do with the grids what needed to be done to counteract whatever nastiness was thrown from the other side. So progressively, we'd have to put that aside. We'd get this much data down, and like with this stuff, this could have been another whole series of graphs to go with it. Didn't have time for that. We had to go on to the next. So we're literally having to jump to the most important things to get done what needs to get done because we're being pushed by the drama a lot. So anyway, you'll see on some charts this stuff that, geez, you didn't talk about that at all. Don't worry about it yet. If you want to read it and it makes sense to you, fine. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. Eventually, those pieces will be plugged in, to some body of information at some point when it becomes significant. We can go on the next, I think, Love. The 15 rays, the primal life force currents. Now, there's that Cathara grid again. Here's how it fits into your body. All right. And that's like this. So you'd have your 4, 7, 10 side on the left, right? And your 3, 6, 9 side, or your path of Amareya, 12, 3, 6, 9 side, on the right. And that would be, these would be running down the center. All right. Over here, it gives a list. Now, I don't know if these are in there. I don't think we hit anatomy in that book because that's all covered in the dance floor. No. So this information, now most people have seen this over and over. There's an extensive explanation of anatomy in the Cathara Bath spiritual healing system. These things are covered extensively for people who want to, really get into that. The Cathara even covers real heavy stuff like what are dimensions, the structure of dimension. I mean, really intense detail in some of it. So these are just for the people particularly who haven't had any of those courses, just so you know. For most of the people, you've seen these graphs so many times, you're probably sick of looking at them. But if you're new, just understand, you don't have to have all this memorized. But for now, it's just helpful to know that you've got this. This is your core template as it manifests in the body form itself. All right? It will begin to help you understand what we're doing when we're running frequency. Now, we haven't gotten into technologies yet where we're directly programming Cathara centers, where you have to have it memorized where exactly they are. What we use, this one down here, is actually an Earth's core. That's your connection to the planetary shield. See this one? I mean, it would have had to have been really long paper. But This is actually in the Earth's core. It's also the same location as something called chakra 13. We'll get into the chakras in a minute just to show where they plug into everything. But this, when this opens, this allows frequency to flow, a circulation system between the planetary shields, which are connected to the solar shields and the galactic shields and all that, allows the primal life force currents to flow down through all the shields into the planetary shield and into you. And your energy likewise will flow into the planetary shields and out. It is because of this connection of the Kathara grids, of our embodied personal Kathara grid, which is the core template of our shield, and the fact that the planet has one of these too that connects directly to this, that we have the ability to directly affect the planetary grids. We can literally run frequency through ours, and whatever programs are running in our Kathara grid will run in the planet's grids and vice versa. That's why we pick up the mutation from the planetary grids as well. So what we're beginning to learn how to do now with the Maharic Seal is the beginning of that, is learning how to activate D12 frequency in the body so we can actually use the body to help clear the distortions out of the lower centers and send the cleared energy into the earth, and then pull D12 energy through the earth. Now that we're in anchoring rod, we can call in D12 frequency from the solar shields or from the universal shields into the planetary shield to bring it back on planet. So there's an intimate communication that takes place through the Kathara grids, through your shields, between your shield and the planet shield. And not just the planets, but if you look at the shields as, okay, you have your little shield here, the next circle out, that would be your tribal shield, your species shield. Then you get into the planetary shield. So it actually, there's a communication that takes place between all members of a species as well. We might not be consciously aware of it, but there is an exchange of energy through the Kathara centers, through the Kathara grid embodied in all of us through our shields that constantly takes place. It's because of the fact that we have this apparatus that we actually make any sense to each other when we speak. It's also because we have this apparatus that we can all experience each other simultaneously existing on one planet together in one hologram. So this is the core. When we get into Kathara, we're into the core of the shields, which are the core of the mechanics of manifestation, literally, personally, and universally. Okay, we can go on to the next one, please. All right. Yes?
Could you say something about the axiotonal lines and how they work in there? Could you say something about the axiotonal lines and how they...
Yeah, the axiotonals weren't on that one. The axiotonals come later. All right, there's another graph that shows, see, we're building in levels, okay? We're going up in layers now. We're starting with the core template, Kathara. We'll go up into the shields, and then what manifests next on top of those and on top of those, because it's like layers. And when you get into axiotonals and chakras and auric field, they're actually more outward. This is we're starting at the core and working out. So the core of the template. So that's why we're doing Kathara first. Now, when we activate the flame body and the Kirashe currents, which are the primal light field currents of D13, 14, and 15, they come down through the embodied Kathara grid, or they actually flash on and off in it. It's not like energy running down, though it might feel like it. It's actually turning on and off, as if it were a template that turned on and off to energize the system. But this is the D13, what's called the Akkadic blue flame frequencies, come through the Kathara grid that way. So they'd come down through, over on this side of the body. They go through 6, they cross over and go through this way, and then through that way now. And then over here you have the D15, which is called the triadic violet flame currents. And the colors have to do with the color resonance of the primary 3, the D13, 14, and 15. The D13 is a turquoise blue, but they call it the blue flame. It's a pale turquoise color. The D14 is a pale gold color, but they call it the gold flame. And the D15 is actually a pale pink, like a magenta, but they call it the violet flame, because it's like a pinky violet color. So when these frequencies turn on in the body, and this is after you get your D12 frequency, because you have to have D12 Maharic frequency activated before you can run the D13, 14, and 15 primal light currents. But once you do, this is a configuration that begins to beam on in your body, where actually you're getting energized, like little zaps of cosmic B12, in your system, entering your system. And it's run and regulated through your Maharic shield, which means through your avatar level of consciousness. So you're not going to blow yourself up with it or anything or get too much energy, because your own consciousness on the D12 level knows how much frequency the shields can hold and how much it can't, and it will regulate that. The shields are self-regulating in that regard, where when you're working with the D12 based system, you can't cause harm to yourself like you can with other Kundalini activations that are playing with the lower energies and they don't know what they're connected to and they're not running them on a D12, on a base 12. You can hurt yourself with those. With these, as long as, I don't even think you can. I was going to say, is there anything you could actually do to hurt yourself with this stuff? And in terms of, with frequency, no, because you won't be able to run more than what your system can handle. The only way you could hurt yourself is like if you decide you want to like run away from your whole life and go like meditate from now until eternity in a little cave someplace. That's not going to help you. You know, so you can hurt yourself in those ways with the material, but you're not going to harm yourself. Yes.
What's the difference in Sean between if you bring enough in, if you bring so much in, your body can't handle it, and the compaction where you said you're not bringing in too much?
The compaction can't happen when you're running the Maharic current. All right? Like you can't harm yourself and bring in out of sequence current or too much current as long as you're running it with the D12, activating your Maharic shield. Now, people are getting molecular compaction here, which is crushing their templates. They're getting bursts of frequency. Like, say, if you want to take an acid trip because it'll give you a nice little chemical out there where you think you had a spiritual experience, what you're doing is bringing in frequency from D4 or D5, crashing it down into your templates in D1, 2, and 3, and the templates aren't activated enough to handle it. So that's where you get molecular compaction from higher frequency coming in when the lower frequency, when the lower templates are not running on base 12. But as soon as you begin working, all the techniques start with running the Maharic current. And because of that, it opens the base 12 subharmonics in all of the dimensions, so you can't hurt yourself. You know, that's the difference. That's why anybody that's teaching stuff out there that is not teaching you Maharic seal is teaching you how to play with fire. And you can hurt yourself with it. And if they're not teaching you Maharic seal, it's either A, because they don't remember yet and they don't know about it yet, or B, because they don't want you to know about it. And that's usually the case of systems that, at this point, that they are not teaching anything about this. Oh, you don't, I remember one lady saying to me, bless her, she says, oh, I don't need a Maharic seal. You don't need a Maharic seal? You mean you don't need your own avatar identity awake in your body? You don't, I mean, a Maharic seal isn't as if it's something that you can go in a store and pick up and buy. Oh, I want one of those, it'll match my couch. It's not like that. It's part of your organic anatomy. It's like saying, oh, I don't need my left foot, you know? But anyway, the D12 currents are what, when you're running Maharic seal and the D12 currents, they are what protect you from having, when you're running higher currents than that, from when you start to bring in those interdimensional currents, they are protecting you from them being used in the wrong way. You might not have the conscious knowledge to know exactly what to combine with what or how fast to bring what in. But if you're running it on Maharic current, it means you're running it on your own Christos consciousness frequency. So that Christos consciousness will regulate whatever the other frequencies are doing to the natural divine blueprint in the template, so you can't harm yourself with them. Same with flame body activation. We could probably blow ourselves up very, very quickly, like to talk about vaporize, if we were trying to do this type of stuff without D12 frequency. But you couldn't activate a flame body anyway without D12 frequency or higher. So anyway, that's what it will look like when we start working with the primal light field around us. People have different the templates of humans, which are base 12 with 12 strand capacity, which means a human template can hold 12 dimensions of consciousness. There's another, the original larger human, the Orifeme indigo child, can hold 24 to 48 sets of frequency, which means more than just one time matrix is worth. When you're dealing with an indigo imprint that has 24 to 48 strand capacity compared to a human 12 strand capacity, it simply means the humans would be able to run less of this. It would flash on less. You could run subharmonics of it, which means you couldn't run a full D13, 14, or 15 current through your body because you only have 12 strand capacity and it would blow up the template. But you can run subharmonics, which means activate the radial body levels in each of the lower densities from 1 through 12. Now, with indigos, they actually can, and this is the only reason indigos are on the planet. They're a species of human. They were the original 24 to 48 strand humans that the 12 strand human template was created from. So they're kind of like the elder race humans. They're put on this planet. They are in complete universal service contracts. Indigos, what they call them, types 1 and types 2. They are here to run the full spectrum of these currents if they can get their DNA activated. That's the challenge, because they come in and they go to sleep just like everybody else and have to wake up and struggle to try to remember who they are and everything just like anyone else. So most of the people that show up at these workshops, because of the frequency that these workshops actually carry themselves, are indigos. Most people are. I mean, I know a lot of people say, oh, am I one? Can you tell me if I'm one? You get to a point where you can tell you if you're one. And it doesn't matter if you are one or if you're not. And it doesn't even matter if you're not even fully human, if you're, like part reptilian or something. There's a lot of lovely reptilian people walking around in human bodies out there. Not all the reptilians are negative. Not all of the Anunnaki are negative. Yeah. Most of the Omicron are not friendly. The Omicron are the dragon moths, by the way. Most people don't realize there's a difference between Omicron draconian and reptilian. They are two different species. Omicron are a base dragon moth type thing, which is like a combined reptile insect thing. They are the dracs, the nasty dracs that most of what they're doing, the reptiles get blamed for. All right, especially by David Icke. I mean, a lot of what he's dealing with in his books, he's revealing stuff about Omicron, but he thinks they're a reptilian strain, but they're not. The reptilian strains are called Odedicron. There are some of them that got messed up with the Omicron, but there are a bunch of them that have been waiting for the last 250 billion years to get out of Phantom, and they fell by accident because they were stuck on one of the planets or the stargates that fell into Phantom Matrix. So it doesn't matter who you are sitting in a workshop, one of these workshops. You have the potential, everybody has a bit different potential of how much of what you can activate in your system. A person who has reptilian coding will have some problems activating a full, they will not be able to run a Kira frequency like an indigo could. But that doesn't mean that they're lesser or less valuable. They're still precious and needed on this planet. So it doesn't matter. It helps to know, and we're going to start finding out. They tell me we're going to be introducing, I think, did they say France? I think they said starting in France. They're going to teach us how to do what's called a beta Hoover scan on ourselves, which is a technique used to begin being able to see our DNA template, which is to begin to see our shields, the part of our shields that has to do with the DNA programming, where we can start to see how many strands are active, how are there overlays or damages to some of them, where you start to and it's kind of scary, like, do I really want to look? Do I want to find out? Do I have that classic Anunnaki signature? Am I an Anunnaki or am I a reptilian? There's a lot of being willing to love yourself, whatever you are, and realize whatever it is blessed that comes with that level of teaching. But I believe they're going to be introducing that, at least in France, when we go in November. So there'll be new stuff coming out on that. Unless something else comes up that, all right, he said, unless something else comes up that requires more immediate attention as far as the drama, around us goes. So anyway, that's how the primal light fields would activate within the body, either in little subharmonics or in the full spectrum when it comes to indigos. Can we go to the next one, please? All right, now we've talked about the shields on the planetary level and the galactic and universal level, and the shield's connection to the Cathara grids. Remember, whoops, can we pull it up just a little, honey, please? Too high. Yeah, that's good. Right there. Thank you. Okay. Now, here's the shield A. It's the telluric shield. This is our personal shields now. Now, there's the same structure that the universal shields hold, but this is our personal microcosmic version of them, and they're connected to the same levels of the universal and galactic and planetary shields. We have our telluric shield here that holds the Cathara centers 1, 2, and 3, or is connected to and is programmed by Cathara centers 1, 2, and 3. All right. When this shield fully activates, it comes out here. It's actually a bit wider than this, but I just kept them all small. All right. It actually is a waveform that comes out around the body the more it's activated. We have a little bit of it activated now or it wouldn't be alive. All right, because we're running dimension 1, 2, and 3 frequency in our bodies right now, or we wouldn't be alive in the hologram. So this is already somewhat activated. When we begin to fully activate it, which means get each one of those dimensions, dimension 1, 2, and 3, they have been on this planet working on a base 4 mutation, actually. Literally everything but the first 4 subfrequency bands in each dimension have been turned off. So literally, I mean, we're like less than half of what we could be because of the even down here in this density, we're not running even the full 3D spectrum. When we begin to work with the Maharic current, that's putting back the 12 subfrequency bands in each dimension. It's turning back on the full 12 subfrequency bands in each Kathara center, which is allowing the corresponding shield to completely form, because the shields can't form fully, they won't activate fully, if those frequencies aren't coming in. What's interesting about the shields is a little later we'll see how they're connected to the Merkaba fields, because the Merkaba fields actually manifest through the shields, and they are those vehicles of light and sound, spiraling electromagnetic currents of light and sound, that when you get them moving fast enough and fully formed, where all the frequencies are filled out, that allow your body to undergo dimensional transmutation, which means you can turn yourself into light sound pattern, turn yourself into the Merkaba field, and go through a gate and pop up and become physical again on the other side. So they're all interconnected. Now we have the telluric shield here, which is the dimension 1, 2, 3, dimension 1, 2, 3 carrier, okay, is the frequencies, the part of the shield that carries the dimension 1, 2, 3 frequencies. We have B, 4, 5, 6. This is called the Doratic shield. The Dora is another word for soul. All right, so Doratic means of the Dora, which means of the soul, or the soul shield, but we call it the Doratic shield. The Doratic shield is, please, up here, when it's activated, when we get the dimension 4, 5, and 6 frequencies running in the body, it is a waveform that generates out here around the body. And they're spiraling waveforms, like they do this. They spin. The shields spin. One spins in counterclockwise, and the other spins in clockwise direction. So they have a spin to them, the counter spins to them. And this is where the Doratic shield would manifest when it's activated in the body. Now, the next one is the Toric shield, which refers to the oversoul shield, or the dimension 7, 8, and 9 aspect of self. That would be this one. This one is up here when it activates. Can we pull that down just a little, please, honey? I'm sorry. Here we go. Okay, this is where, and this is, you think of those old paintings with halos and things. All right, this is where the halos came from. I'll show you where the clouds below the feet came from in a minute. And there's other ones that get into extreme activations of the four Ruche pillars within the body, where it actually creates the configuration of the wings. So the symbolism of the angelic form and the halos and all those religious things, it was all put in code here. And that still applies. So we're all getting our wings back and our halos back. Now, the cloud below the feet is the Maharic shield. This is the thing, when we run the Maharic seal, we activate the Maharic shield. Now, this one holds all the coding of all the others. In other words, it holds the mathematics of its own pattern for dimension 10, 11, and 12, but it also holds all of the mathematics for all of the others. So if there's any damage done to any of these, that means if there's any damage done to any of these centers and this shield have the ability, if you activate it, to run the whole spectrum back up, to put back what was originally in the divine blueprint. This is the shield that connects with it's your Christos shield, your Maharic shield. It is your 12-dimensional pre-matter divine blueprint. And the frequencies that release, the D10, 11, and 12 frequencies that release, particularly the 12, which is the full, gives you the full spectrum. That is the carrier wave that's needed to run into the body any of the higher frequencies of the primal light and sound fields. So when we activate Maharic shield, what we're doing is we're activating the shield down here. We're temporarily sending bursts of energy down that will temporarily trigger partial activation of the outside parts of it, the outside parts that correspond to these dimensions. We can't fully hold yet in the body because there's a main vertical current energy that runs up and down the body that if you tried to run full D12 frequency at the full spectrum in it right now, you'd blow yourself up, and the shields won't let that happen. They just won't work that way. But we're activating the outer portions, which is pulling up a pillar of energy around the body and in the biofield that creates a D12 frequency barrier from anything coming in that would harm you. So it means energy coming at you from the black hole system or from the environment, it will begin to help transmute it. It won't stop it from passing through you. It will just transmute it and set it back to its original divine blueprint order, whatever it was, whatever frequency was coming in. If it's a twisted frequency, it will set it back to the original universal, because remember, the Maharic shield is connected to the universal Maharic shield, which means it holds for everything in this time matrix. The original imprint that it was created by God to hold is always held eternally within that liquid light field. So when you're running this current, it's actually setting a field of that, bringing it here, helping to anchor it here. So it's helping to transmute things and put them back to their own divine right order. When we get into major Kundalini activations and things, which the flame body activations are, but they're still gentle because they're not done out of sequence and they're running on the Mahara current, progressively we're not only going to have the pillar up around us, but that central column in the body is going to progressively expand. Right now it's a very thin little like pencil line of energy running up the body. When we do the ordinations, this is the help that's being done. Your avatar transmits to us a burst of D12 frequency with your signature on it, not ours. And it's put in a buffer so you don't pick up any of our frequency. And it's transmitted to you, and like different ordinations put it in different spots, to literally bring in to more activation within the central vertical current, because you can run this yourself, but it's giving you a jump start in being able to start running the D12 frequencies. The regent level ordination begins the process of activating a little thin subharmonic frequency of D12 all the way up the main vertical column. That is aligning you directly with the live open line of frequency to your Christos. That will stay open after a regent ordination. That's why we always say with those, well, they're permanent. You know, like you can decide you don't want to ever do anything with this work again, but just know that you've just, opened the conduit between you and your Christos self and your pre-matter template. And you and your Christos level of self are going to hopefully have to work that out together. You don't have to listen to us, but if you try to do anything, like if you want to become a Satanist or anything like that, where you're like, doing nasty stuff with energy and stuff, that frequency is going to have a problem with the frequencies of the negative things you would try to do, and it will cause you feedback in your field, and it will be hard to handle the frequency. But as long as you have a desire to work with your Christos, and if you get the level 3 regent ordination, it begins to open up the inner pillar, where you have a tiny little stream of pale silver liquid light that will run in your main vertical current thereafter. You still have to work to get your Maharic seal on the outside to stay up, because you energize it, you activate the shield by using a technique, and that will come, and that will stay up for a little while. But because the planetary grids aren't supporting it right now, because most of them are in reversal, the grids are 2/3 reversed on this planet, we have to keep manually resetting it and bringing the seal back up. And that's what people that have been working with this work for the last 2 or 3 years have been doing. Maharic seal every day, okay, to bring it up. Because it's your protection field, but it's also your acceleration field. The more frequency, D12 frequency, Christos frequency, your own, that you bring into your body, the more you are activating, more quickly, you are activating the DNA template and the shields, and the more you will get of your consciousness into your body. And it doesn't happen overnight. Oh, wow, I did a Maharic shield. I'm a Christ-conscious, fully conscious being right now. I have 12 strands activated. No, they're usually Ruby Order Anunnaki workshops that tell you that. Last time I heard they're doing the 13th strand activation. Yeah, right. Anyway, won't go into that. But the shields, understanding that you have these waveforms that literally manifest through the Cathara grid. The Cathara grid holds the program for them, but when they activate, they manifest in various biological regions, regions of your body. And they're not just sticking out around your body, they're actually permeating those areas of the body. When a full flame body is fully activated, and you get to the point where you are a 12-strand fully activated being who can pop in and out of stargates, the inside pillar finally fully expands to the outside pillar, and you are a walking pillar of light. Now you still have a body, but literally there's no barriers between the shields anymore. They all merge into one, and all of the levels, the barriers between the levels of consciousness, the radial bodies, all open to each other, between your density 1 self, your density 2 soul self, your density 3 oversoul self, your density 4 avatar self. So it is the process of becoming a pillar of light, and sound. All right. Next, please. Go on.
Just logistics. That's 20 minutes away to 5:30, which is the ideal point to make a break for comfort and stuff.
Okay.
And are we going to do techniques before the break or not?
Yeah, we could. Yeah. 1 and 2, right? Yeah, because they go together.
It's up to you, but it's 10 minutes after the break, we should break.
Okay, so 20 minutes. But would it take about 10 minutes to run those two? They're the shorter ones, aren't they? Yeah? Okay, so I can do this for 10 more minutes then. All right. We're going to do this. We're going to do anatomy for 10 more minutes. Then we're going to go into techniques 1 and 2, because we have 7 techniques. Yeah. Okay, we were going to do it. We were going to go in 20 minutes, if you can. I mean, we could do it now and come back and do that. Do you want to break now or in 20 minutes? Now? Okay. All right. There's enough. It's almost like This side said, we'll start. This side said, now. All right, 20-minute break. Okay. They're almost all back. We still have a lot to cover to get to, and a lot of this is information that the people who have been with us a while already know all this stuff. So we've got to get through this stuff, barrel on through it. We have to get through Merkaba real quick. We have to get through chakras and auric field levels and all that really fast. So we can then get to radial body and understanding the flame bodies, and then to shadow body. All right? So there's a lot to cover. And usually, anybody that's been to some of the other workshops, we actually have, like, we're gonna stop by 8 o'clock tonight because people need to eat, and you can't eat in this town if you don't get in a table and get, they don't serve. I guess they close at 10 or whatever. Now, usually the workshops run till at least 10:30. I think Phoenix went till 2 in the morning. I mean, it did. It was it 3? I think I was asleep by about 11:30, but I just kept going. And God bless everybody that stayed. I couldn't believe they actually stayed, but we did the technique all at the end. Literally, I think we did, we didn't do 7 together, but about 5 of them back to back, which people were sleeping on the floor, snoring. I mean, it was really funny. Because basically, when we're doing the techniques, even if you fall asleep during the techniques, you're still picking up the frequency. Even though your consciousness transferred into the D4 frequencies, you're still picking it up. So people say, oh, okay, even if I fall asleep, it's okay. Yeah, fine. So there are people sleeping all over the place. It was really cool. Yeah, but we can't do that here. Everybody's going to go home hungry. Yeah. So we'll do our best to wrap up for 8. It says 7:30 on the board, but we'll try for 8. Hopefully we'll make it. Because tomorrow is going to be the mad dash, where we get through, okay, we know this stuff, we've got it, part of the activations we'll do tonight. We're not going to do all of them back to back, because that is brutal. It's brutal on the person running the technique, and it's really hard on the people sitting there trying to stay awake in their chairs for 2 hours of technique. Yeah, it was almost 2 hours worth. It was pretty intense. So we're going to try to keep an even flow here. And since other people are busy, I'm going to do the flippings here. All right, so there we talked about, let me find pointer again. There you go. Yep, that's the one that works, I think. Yeah, all right. So we have our shields. That's our Maharic shield, but it's actually really, really big. When it activates fully, it goes out. It can go out for miles, actually. You can expand and contract it and things once you get good at playing with it. The Maharic seal that we do is the pillar that comes up here from this shield. And what we are working with the flame body activations, we are going to begin working to expand the central vertical current. Literally, even with the Emerald and Amethyst Awakening, the Kundalini activations that were done at the beginning of the workshop, they begin the process of expanding the central vertical current. And that has to do with releasing seals, what are called star crystal and seed crystal seals. Well, when we get into flame body activations, this is like blowing them all open as fast as possible without doing any damage. Right? So the object of all of it is to get not only as much of the D12 level of our consciousness into body, but to be able to run as much of the primal ki riche, light fields, and kundalini sound field consciousness and frequency as possible as well. So we'll go on from here, from the shields and the internal Kathara grid. We go, let me see where the pile goes here. We go. This is, again, basic structure that people that haven't been with this work need to see at least once. Now, any of this, for the new people, all of these things that have to do with the anatomy are more fully detailed in the Kathara Biospiritual Healing Program course book. It is worth getting because it shows you where all these parts go together, everything from chakras to axiotonal lines, the hara line, all sorts of other stuff you've heard about in other places or little pieces of. So you're going to get a crash course here just so you know some basic parts and see that they connect together. But there's a lot more detail in the Kathara book. So this is in the body, the next level, that as literally your body is manifesting itself from the template and the shields outward. We get into, these are the crystal seals. I was talking about the seals that need to open to allow the main central vertical current, which is this, to expand progressively. So this will expand out to meet the boundaries of the Maharic seal pillar. So literally, you are a pillar of living light, God consciousness, living light and sound. And that doesn't mean your body goes away, but it means your body can go away if you want it to. It means you can transmute the body into full Merkaba and go through gates and remanifest someplace else. So the object is, in the work that we're going to be doing, is to begin the manual release of these seals on the most expedited path possible. Now, if it wasn't for the emergency situations that are coming up on this planet, we wouldn't have had to get into this quickly, because these seals are progressively, every technique that we've done in any of the programs, if you're doing something to activate Merkaba, it implies you're doing something to activate frequency in the shield, which implies you're activating DNA, which implies you're beginning the process of releasing the seals. So all of the work, every piece of the work that affects one of those pieces affects all the others as well. But this particular set of activations are the ones that begin, the flame body activations, are the ones that begin the most rapid sequence of natural seal release, manual seal release. And it is the override program, where if something is going really bad and there's going to be something really bad that happens to the template, if you don't bring in those frequencies, then this manual override program was designed specifically for that purpose. So beings in bodies could put up their protection with no problem at all, so they weren't harmed. And that's why we're being given these technologies at this time, because there's some stuff happening on the planet that isn't fun. And what's nice about the flame body activations is once a person can fully hold a flame body activation, I mean, it starts at first it's just a little weak flame body, and it gets stronger and stronger where you can hold and build the frequencies. But when you get to a certain point, and I don't know what point yet it is, we become walking portals where we could not only get ourselves through gates, but just by us being on the planet, we can actually help the grids to not, certain areas of the grids to not fall. So it's like people think, oh gee, well, things are, if part of the planet is going to go black hole and part isn't, which is what we're facing in the next 10-year, 15-year period. That means I guess I should not worry about having a house or anything. I can't take my house or my cat or anything. Actually, you can. Our bodies become like protected grids that will radiate, and they will protect the shields of the things around them. So there's an advantage to this, not just to ourselves, but to the other people in our family, and to the pets and plants and other things in our neighborhood, and even to our house and the stuff we tend to like to have. So it's not one of those spiritual development courses where you have to get rid of all your 3D stuff because you don't need it anymore. I'm going to ascend. You're going to take it with you because you're going to help take part of the planet with you. That's the objective. Okay, anyway, the main central vertical current, okay, the seals. Now these things, again, I'm just going to point them out quick. I'm not going to go through naming all of them and the whole bit. You don't need to know all of that right now. If you want to know it, all these things are detailed in the Cathara manual for the people who haven't taken Cathara. It is worth getting. And we have, it has tapes with it, and we have it on video as well. So you're just getting the surface level data that you'll need to know and understand to be able to do the activations that go with this workshop. And if you want more detail, it is available. All right, but we don't have time for it today. But these are the star crystal seals, the ones that are running in between the chakras, and then right at the center of each chakra, which aren't shown, but there's a little knot that would be the knot of the bow tie. There's another smaller seal that's called a seed crystal seal. Now, the seed crystal seals control the flow of energy through the chakras, whereas star crystal seals control the flow of energy within the main vertical current itself and between the chakras. So in flame body activation, we're going to be working with releasing some of these seals in order to allow more frequency to come through the main vertical current. There's also a set of seals called the craniosacral seals. And these crystal seals are the main seals of control in the Kundalini energies in the body, the 9-dimensional currents. And if we're going to be trying to run D12 currents or D13, 14, and 15 currents fully inside of ourselves, we have to be able to first run D1 through 9 currents. So you need to get the Kundalini currents activated and alive within the main vertical current, as well as the higher currents first. So this just shows you basically where the chakras are. There are 15 chakras, not just 7 like a lot of systems teach. You have your first base chakra, your second chakra, your third chakra, fourth heart chakra, fifth throat chakra, sixth third eye chakra, seventh crown chakra. The seventh and the first are actually one big chakra when all of the seals open. All right? You see how the chakras are like little bow ties? Now what the chakras are spinning vortices of energy. They spin energy in and out of, like one side sends energy out into the field, the other pulls it in from the field. And they have different spins, and we won't get into like what spins left, one spins right, and all that kind of stuff right now. But actually 7 and 1 are one big chakra that opens when all the rest are opened, the rest in between them open into each other, which has to do with activating DNA and opening the radial bodies between the density levels of the self. All right, now, so chakra 1, 2, and 3 would go with Kathara centers 1, 2, and 3. That means it processes dimensional frequencies 1, 2, and 3. So all the numbers, the system that we teach is very simple. Once you see the system where, Kathara centers and DNA strand templates and chakras and all the numberings go together, and they go with the dimensional current that they're running. So, it plugs into the 15-dimensional matrix. So it's really a very cohesive system in and of itself. It's not that hard to understand. There's a lot of detail, but the concepts are very easy to understand. Now, let's see, the chakras, we get 1 through 7 there, but then we start getting into the higher chakra centers that have not been operating in the bodies on this planet for ages now. And these are coming back into activation, particularly when you're working with them. They're coming back into activation, chakra 8 is, in response to the frequencies that are coming through the planetary grids or the planetary shields because of the Stargate opening cycle. But they're coming through on a reverse current because 2/3 of the planetary shields are in reversal. So when we're working with the technologies we're working with, we're running the D12 frequencies and the higher frequencies that will allow these chakras to begin activating on their proper spin where they're not transmitting reverse current. So we have chakra 8 actually runs this way, comes out here. It's between, like the opening of it in the front is actually right here. It's a point that's actually called, that we'll learn later, called the Azure A point. Right here, it's in the thymus gland. And it opens between chakra 5 and chakra 4. And it extends, it's little, like a bow tie again, goes up into the pineal gland and then comes out the back of the head. This is why when you start doing activations, even if you're not consciously doing them, if it's just in relation to the planetary grids, people are starting to get weird sensations in their head and stuff, certain pressure in certain areas, swelling sometimes at the back, down here where the head hooks on to the neck. That's caused when 9 is starting to activate. See, chakra 9 from pineal up to the front part of the skull, and then it comes down right into that little area in the back of the head. And often it will cause swelling or tenderness or cause, you actually get stiff all the way through the neck and like down into the shoulders from it. This means that more new frequencies are coming into your body in that area that your body's not used to processing. And sometimes it will make you feel really stiff for a while until you can shake it out and run it through. And massage helps a lot with that. And running the currents, like consciously realizing it's energy that's building up there and using techniques to like breathe it in and grab it and spread it down your body can help to dislodge that. Back rubs are the best though. If you have somebody that can give you a nice back rub, yeah, with a Maharic seal up, of course. For the new guys, I'm not kidding. You get back rubs or even go for healing work or any kind of work where somebody else is touching your body or touching your energy, you don't know, if they're not running Maharic seal, you don't know what's in their field or who is in their field. You may be getting implanted or having your own implants stimulated so they activate. So, and there's a lot of healers that are being used on this planet right now in that capacity, and they don't know it. They're trying to do their best with the technologies that they have available, but they don't know about Maharic seal yet. They don't know how to protect their own biofields. A lot of them are like letting invisible beings help them and come into their hands and stuff, but they haven't checked their resumes. They don't know who these people are. Just because it says it's an angel and because it happens to be, invisible to everybody else doesn't mean it has a good agenda. So whenever you go for healing work or any kind of that, even to your doctor, run your own Maharic seal. Bring up the frequencies. Now, when you get your flame bodies activated through the activations you'll do here, if you follow the simple techniques that are after it, Technique 8, now there's 4 to 6 weeks that you have to wait before Technique 8 will work. But once you're on Technique 8, then it goes to that once a week and then the easy 6-step on a daily basis. And 6 steps is like something you can do in 2 seconds, once you understand how to run the energy. That would make it so you don't have to do the whole, like Maharic quick seal and all of that. It will actually hold the Maharic seal. But it's really important to be aware and not be afraid of anybody, but just be smart and be responsible. If you don't want to take a chance of something getting into your field, keep your field strengthened so that doesn't happen. And then you can, go to healers. Don't worry about it. If you want somebody to give you back rub or a chiropractic treatment, that's okay. But be responsible for your own fields. Yes?
Would that protect you from viruses as well?
It can, but you have to strengthen the frequencies. And when something is manifesting to the point where it's physically manifesting, you need to generate a lot more frequency to clear that or to protect from that. We're learning how to do that now. The flame body activations will begin the process of boosting the immune system. So we will be able to heal, and to be protected from more things like that. That's going to become important too, because in the next few years or so, depending on how things go, if they go the real expedited way where it goes all wrong and we run for gates, then we're not going to have to worry about it. But if it doesn't, where it's more of the long drawn-out process of what's going to happen between now and 2012, there's probably going to be times, because it's part of the Illuminati agenda, to assist in bringing the tribulation into physical manifestation, where certain diseases, they've already been testing them. I mean, everything from AIDS to, the West Nile virus, things like that, are tests to see how they affect and who they affect, what type of gene codes they affect. Do they affect indigos? Do they affect humans? Do they affect the Illuminati, who are the hybrids? So there's going to be a time, I don't know when that's going to start, where the issues of disease becomes something we need to contend with. These flame body activations are giving you a jump start on the process of boosting the immune system, so they wouldn't affect someone with the flame bodies activated as much as they would someone without. If there's enough of us that get a strong enough flame body activated, it'll spread through literally the tribal shield or the tribal template of the species, which means it would help to create protection for the entire species. So every one of us that works with this is helping to assist the whole, which is nice about when you're working with Christos energies. That's how things work. So anyway, chakras, got to up to 9. All right, we're chakra 10. Here's about 6 inches above the head. Chakra 11, there's a seal between that, see? Chakra 11 is about 16 and 18 inches above the head. That's not chakra 12. Chakra 12 is down here. Okay? It's about 6 inches below the feet. Chakra 13 is in Earth's core. Chakra 14 is 36 inches above the head. And chakra 15 is like wherever you are on the Earth, draw a straight line, go all the way out the other side and way out up into the primal light and sound fields. And that's where that chakra is located. So it's literally a feed line that brings the frequency through the template, but then literally pulls it from the D15. So this is the basic layout of your chakra system. The next, and they all have colors, like the color chart and everything is listed with them, and the crystal seals that go in between them. They're all listed. That's part of the Cathara program. You don't need to know all that for right now. Okay, yeah, I'll put that one up real quick. This is just to show you as the body is manifesting itself outward into matter, goes from the Cathara template and the shields out into the chakras. It goes also into this called the auric field. Now this is considered the Huva bodies, all right, the three-dimensional bodies of light and sound, all right. You have, for each dimension, each chakra, there is a level of the auric field. This is the field that's literally around you. And you can begin to feel that field, where it's a little tricky to find which level you're on, because if you pass through one, you didn't realize you felt it, you hit the next one and you think you're like feeling the mental body, but you're actually feeling the emotional body barrier. There's a little bit, if you take your hand and put it out there, and kind of close your eyes, tends to help. Ever so slowly and gently move it, and realize you're going to try to feel a little resistance zone somewhere. You'll find a couple of them. When you feel one, move through it, and then keep moving. Go to the next, and you'll feel another one. They're in a little bit different place for everybody, but you can begin to feel the capsule levels of each dimensionalized level of your auric field. Now, when you get really good at it, if you start in, first you find your etheric body, which is very close to the skin and goes all the way through the body. Once you find that, if you work out, you have to sense it. You can do it this way, but it's a little awkward. You can sensitize the back of the hand, and that takes a little bit more, practice. But you can start to feel them so you can identify where those levels actually are. This is interesting if you're into auric reading, because you can start to tell where, just by turning on some of the inner vision, you see stuff in people's aura, you can start to tell what level it's coming from. If it's in the area that corresponds with the mental body frequencies, which would be not the etheric body, because that corresponds with D1 frequencies. This is the emotional body, corresponds with D2 frequencies and chakra 2. If it was the mental body area, let's say it was out here, and you found that third level out, that means it would be manifesting through chakra 3. So there's a chakra 3 distortion or blockage if there's a problem that you see in the field. It also implies that Kathara center 3 in the body is holding that distorted program, and DNA strand 3 is having a problem. So what you would do is you'd work with chakra 3 to try to clear. You'd run D12 frequency or higher, or some of the Kathara healing technologies. You would go for the chakra that's connected to the level of the aura where you're seeing the disturbance. So, and if you're seeing chakras and you see disturbances in chakras, or hear disturbances in chakras, because chakras have inner sound to them, and some people are getting very, very sensitive, where they can actually, they haven't even been trained, it's just starting to turn on. It's one of our inner senses that are starting to turn on. They can actually hear if a chakra is out of tune, like a piano that's out of tune. And when you hear an out of tune sound, or if you see kind of, if you're getting the vision instead of the hearing, and you see like it looks floppy, or it seems to be rotating in a funny thing where it's flopping instead of, spinning nicely, you'll start to be able to identify, issues that are happening in chakras, which implies the corresponding DNA strand template it's coming through that template from the shields, from the particular area of the Kathara grid. Like if it's the D3, it'll be the third Kathara center will be affected. So you can learn to work with these technologies to clear each layer that it's coming through, and that will create more permanent healing of the issue. So there's a lot of things that if we had time to play with, we could have so much fun just clearing things and seeing things in our fields, and there's so many wonderful fun things that we could do. But there's not a lot of time right now, and I don't mean just in this workshop. There's not a lot of time to enjoy yet the benefits of having this spiritual knowledge back. Because you could go out, it's like there's enough knowledge here that you could go out and like just take the books and play with them and the ideas in your own self and God for a good 20 years out in a cave someplace. You never even need anybody else to talk to, because you can start to talk to the universe, your Christos self, God, and you can like realize you're part of the living universe. So right now we don't have the luxury of being able to frolic with this knowledge and the joyful feelings that would give us. But that's some of the things that we can play with when we have some time to do it. If you can take some time, realize that there's so many other technologies that are a part of these technologies, and not just technologies that help with healing or whatever, but that help you find out who you are. Like your reincarnational memory is stored somewhere in all of this, right? Reincarnational memory is the memory of who you are right now in other time zones. They are alive right now, just like you are. You have 1,728 selves. You're one of them. An avatar has 1,728 manifest selves in space-time at one time. That's a 12-strand avatar. If you're an indigo, it's even more. Yeah. And of all of those, there will be at least one body that has the coding in it that gets born into the time frame when gates are to open, that has the ability to pull the consciousness of all of them through the template and bring them all out of this density and all through. So literally, we are, as we integrate our soul and our oversoul, we are integrating also the consciousness and the memory banks that go with the other parts of ourselves that are running around in different time zones right now. And I won't, because it will take too long, there's other things that we'll probably weave into some other workshop that we've put here and there about, all right, well, wait a minute, what if I remember dying in a certain one? There's a whole thing about birthing and deathing. It's really the movement of consciousness. If you take the whole life as a pattern, and this is the small part, and this is the fully expanded pattern on this side, right? Well, the consciousness, say your consciousness that comes in, goes in to the smallest part and accretes and expands through the whole pattern. You live the lifetime, right? Get to its full expansion, go out of that pattern, and it keeps expanding into the next one. But its smallest part would match the biggest part that you just came out of. That would be the next fetal integration point. It's actually the consciousness that's moving to give this series of holographic experiences. It's hard to describe some of it, but we are all existing at once. All of our selves exist at once. The work we're doing right now on the planet corresponds with the work our selves are doing in the Atlantean period that prevented the fall in 22,326 BC. And it goes way back and way up into the galactic scale. So we're not alone at all in this work. We have many of our own selves working the same thing. This is why the knowledge, there is a reason everyone who comes to these workshops comes. And it's because of who you are in the other time frames as well, because we know each other there too. Now there are people that have come to the workshops that were sent by the other side. Find out how much we know, find out how much trouble we're making, but they reveal this time, that kind of stuff. There's sometimes they send in their spy crews and that kind of stuff. We love them too, so we don't mind. These people are the people that are connected to the ones who are consciously and actively being involved with messing with things back in the Atlantean period. So it's really interesting. It's like, it's a celebration of self when you start to realize this is why you could go for 20 years, and even if you just knew that much, you could have lots of people to talk to, at least 1,727 others that are directly online, right? So we are working with our incarnations simultaneously, and they are working with us, and some of them know we are here in this time frame, just like we're learning that some of them are there. Yes?
If you activate the flame bodies, and you said a moment ago that when you do that, you pull all your 79 and 28 words and indigo even more, and you pull them out, are you going to change in the past and the future?
You can. Yes. See, the past and the future are both mutable. Yes.
If you had said once something similar that when we succeed, that all our cells will line up with the probability that's inherent that everything is successful.
Yes.
In all kind of rates.
Yes. See, this is going to take me in a direction. It's going to take me forever. There's something called the heroic probability. See, the way the unified field and the creation matrix itself, the cosmic matrix is created, is that all probabilities can be explored. We have been, for a very long time, our race has been on a path of exploring certain types of things that have had a lot of conflict drama involved in them. But in each place where something went wrong or against divine blueprint, there is an equivalent place in space-time that it went right. And there's a whole range of places in between where it went not quite as bad or not quite as right. Now, there's a heroic probability, which was the full fulfillment, the full expression of the divine blueprint. What we are doing collectively across time, all of ourselves and all of the guardian selves that are in the echo worlds that are helping us, we are moving, literally, the consciousness that has been kind of stuck in this polarity experiment for a very long time. We are moving the whole collective back into the place where it didn't go wrong in the first place. But we will go there and experience that place eventually. That's not going to be the immediate stop on this train. You have to reverse it out. But once that is achieved, we will even change that because we will bring back the knowledge. It will be as if we were sitting and having a dream in our room. And then we woke up from the dream. The dream had taken us for seemingly 250 billion years through this incredible drama that had great sorrows and great victories and a final healing at the end. And we wake up from that dream in our safe, perfect space where we realize it was a dream. That's what the whole race and every animal form, every plant form, all the consciousness here is moving toward that. We are moving back into the heroic probability, which is the full expression where the divine blueprint fully expressed itself without having distortions in it. But we come back with the knowledge of its opposite as well. So I won't go any further on that because it gets so out there. I get out there where I can feel the top of my head and my crown chakra going, right? I just started going, right? Like, oh, here we go. Yeah, all right. We can get off this one now, I think. Anyway, that's the auric field levels. Again, Kathara Healing has this. You can look at the little print on it. And this is why this wasn't advertised as a Dance for Life workshop or a Kathara Healing workshop, because I knew we were going to have to hop, skip, and jump through a bunch of those things without going into detail to get you to the most important stuff, which is the most advanced level that isn't contained within any of those, but those other programs contain the detail that will make more sense of what we're doing here. Now this is the next level up where we're dealing with axiotonal lines. All right, somebody had asked about axiotonal lines before. Now, for a moment, imagine that these little black dots that are all over here aren't there. They're not supposed to be. These are the main vertical energy run lines in the body. These are now building up from the axiotonals. These circulate energy from the chakras and from the template through the entire body system. They are the primary control or run grid lines. On the planetary level, the planet also has axiatonal lines, and they are the vertical lines. If you look at the planetary globe, they would be the lines that run vertically, and they are the main energy distribution lines. Then you have smaller ones on the planetary level called ley lines that go horizontally, and even smaller ones that go diagonally, that create literally a grid of running energy through the planetary body or a personal body. In the personal body, we have the axiatonal lines, which are our main verticals, and they each run the currents. There's very specific. Each one of them carries one of the one of the 12-dimensional currents, and they feed each organ system. They are the part of our body form that before we have manifest particles, it is feeding the energy in that will become those manifest particles. So every organ system, everything in your body has axiatonal lines running through it. They allow it to manifest into physical form. The axiatonal lines, there's several people out there that I know that are doing axiatonal line work, but they usually don't understand where they fit with the chakras or anything else. So the chakras feed energy into the axiatonals and vice versa. They're an energy circulation system that works together with the rest of, from the template up. So these are the little chakras that are supposed to be there. They're the palm chakras, little ones in the elbows and in the shoulders. These are the main chakra centers. All right, the embodied ones. The other ones are up and down, up above the head and below the feet. There's chakras here, little chakras all over here. These little white holes are natural chakras. Now, these other things you're seeing here, this is one set, and we're not even talking Metatron yet. This is a series of implants that were put in by certain of the Anunnaki races. They're in the planetary grids on axiatonal line 7, which means they manifest through our shields into our bodies on axiatonal line 7. They're called the Jehovian seals. They were also called the death seals because they were intended to kill the physical body, to allow it to be dragged. It was another one of the black hole matrix things, but this wasn't the Wisdek plan. This was the phantom matrix plan. Remember, there were 2 black hole systems. The phantom matrix system was trying to drag our system in so they would have enough power by absorbing our system to block the other Wisdek system. So basically you had the phantom matrix beings trying to pull us in, as well as the Wisdeks trying to pull both sides in. So we have these seals that used to be the thing we were trying to clear, and now it's like, forget it, we got even more problems. It's like, seriously, it's like, all right, which implant do you start with? Which one can do the most damage the fastest? That's what we're on now. When they activated the beast, that brought another whole set of implants into activation, and they are even more severe than what these can do. If we can clear those, these will clear naturally. So we're going up. But on this diagram, it shows where the Jehovian seals are manifesting in the body. Also shows, see all these little black dots? These don't belong there. These right now are all the axiatonal lines that are actually being blocked by these implants and shield distortions. So we are literally, we're hardly getting any of the natural currents running into our body. Our bodies are hardly manifesting. They're much smaller than they're supposed to be. Human bodies are supposed to be anywhere from 7 to 12 feet tall. The head shape is different. The brain is much smaller. All of these things, because all of this is blocked. This was called the real crucifixion. All right, the crucifixion story was created around, it was almost like a sick joke that was created around the reality of what was done in the planetary grids, knowing it would cause the mutations in the DNA, in the shields, in the bodies of people. It's called the crucifixions because it blocked here, and this is where the crucifixion story actually came from. Nails in the hands. It was the chakras that were blocked by these things. The hand chakras couldn't do their transmitting like they used to, where we used to be able to wave a hand and manifest something or make it disappear or heal something immediately. That was shut off. Down here, the same thing was done in the feet. These little black dots that are blocking all the axiatonals. Those blocks on the axiatonals block the energy from coming through the axiatonals into the chakras. It does the same thing with these. There's a bunch of seals here, Jehovian seals here, that block some of the currents that are supposed to be coming down here. Over here in the spleen, we got the area of the stab wound. And here is the crown of thorns, where it literally, there's a whole series. Every one of these black dots, if you traced it up, is like a crown of thorns of blockages that stops. It has literally stunted the growth of the brain. It's changed the shape of the head. And this has totally messed up the hormonal relationships in the body. The hormonal relationships are key to ascension and Stargate passage because certain hormones and chemical substances are supposed to be released by the DNA into the body to prepare the body for a natural internal fission and fusion of the core, the nucleus of atoms. There's a particle-antiparticle fission and fusion that takes place, or first a fusion and then fission where it separates again. That's supposed to take place. And it's not one that would explode the body. If it's happening normally and the right chemical carriers are working in the body, you and your antiparticle double that's in the parallel universe, right, actually merge into one being. You have the same body form. You have a little bit different version of it. One might have dyed its hair purple and you might have green hair, but you still have the same template and the same birth body form. We have doubles. They used to call them doppelgangers in the old days. So we not only have souls in 1,728 selves, we also have doubles. And so do our 1,728 selves. Actually, wait a minute. No, it doesn't work that way. It's halved. Half of those 1,728, I think, are doubles. Yeah, I have to get to the other diagram to remember that one. All right, anyway, this is really the truth behind what the crucifixion story was about. The inner Christ was crucified. And what's really interesting, and I find it one of the most remarkable things, is that when we reveal this part of the history, the people who get the most mad about it are Christians, which really freaks me out because I would think that they would be happy. The person who was Jeshua, who was a person named as Jesus Christ in the Bible, wasn't crucified. He didn't die on the cross. This was the crucifixion. That whole story was woven around it. He ascended because he had the 12-strand capacity, and he came to bring that back to the races here. He also left children behind, a Grail line that would keep that gene code alive here. And it's really sad that people who are very stuck in biblical dogma really are attached to needing their Savior to having been crucified on a cross. Oh, they love their Savior so much. Well, if you love him so much, why would you choose to believe that he was nailed to a cross and died in agony instead of believing the truth, the fact that he actually ascended to show you how to do it? It's really, really strange how people actually they get angry. How dare you say Christ wasn't crucified? He was not crucified. But we were. Yeah, good one. That's right.
He was supposed to have saved us, and I don't want to believe the difference.
See, the concept of Christ saving us, the Christ, the Christos, the inner Christ, this is what Jesus taught. You have this in you. Know thyself, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That was one of the things that were said in those times, and it was very true. And this is these are the teachings that they were bringing through in their language in their day. They were translating the same CDD plates and Maharata texts that we are now. So I really, really wish that the people who are who the Christ story means so much to them, that they could really realize what it was about, because it's much more of a celebration than the stuff they're being taught. What's left in the Bible, they gutted the Bible. They turned it into a control dogma that's been used to manipulate people and have them hand their power over to popes and all sorts of other politically motivated establishments ever since. The Bible was created to do that. They took the sacred texts, edited out the good stuff. They kept parts of the history, twisted other parts to cover up things like the virgin birth. Yeah. That had to do with making sure things like E.T. Grail lines and stuff didn't get into the history on the fact that there are beings that live in other places that come and visit here sometimes. And yes, sometimes they leave gene codes. And by the way, humans are part of that gene code. The history was taken out of the biblical books. And not just the Bible. They raided, literally, since the time of Atlantis, all the ancient teachings, which were scattered among the cultures, the original 12 tribes, the human tribes that were the guardians of this planet. They each had a piece of the CDD plate knowledge. There were 12 CDD plates. Each tribe got to be the custodians of the knowledge held within one of them. The spiritual knowledge and the science knowledge in each one of those plates. And each was a different level. Tribe 1 had plate 1, and that had like the first level, the easier level of information. Then 2 and 3, all the way up to plate 12 that held the big stuff, that, tribe 12, who had the gene code to go with the big stuff frequency, they were the keepers and the teachers of those things. All of the holy books that have remained in fragmented, mutated, totally ripped apart form on the planet at this point originally came out of the CDD plates. They were the original holy teachings, and there were 12 sacred religions, and they weren't control dogmas. But after the Atlantean period, after 9558 BC, They were progressively, each culture, each tribe was raided, not just to take its books. They took the books, they twisted the histories in them, they took out the empowerment teachings of the inner Christos, and they also raided the gene lines and the Grail lines, and through literally forcing women to bear children, raping women, and forcing them to bear children, to combined Leviathan or Illuminati lines that had not human souls in them with the pure strain gene codes. This planet has been raped, and its peoples have been raped, and it is very sad. But I really wish, I don't want to go too far on a tangent, but I was telling Naz, I don't know if I should bring up the crucifixion thing in this one, but I decided, might as well. Has to do with axiotonals, and I want people to know, especially the new people, since there are new people. I used to think, we'll ease the new people into that stuff, gently, because that can be a big one, because there have been so many people that are so attached to having to have the Bible be exactly, God came down with a big pen and wrote it all by himself. This book has been passed on for years and years and years now. It has been twisted, changed, translated into all sorts of languages. Even if you can buy 5 different Bibles from 5 different publishing houses, and they say different stuff even now, So originally the intention was pure, and that's why I wish that people who are into the Bible or into their Koran or into their Buddhist traditions, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, because they all have tiny bits of truth left and a whole bunch of garbage put in. And if you're attached to the whole book as if the book were the only thing, you're forgetting that the living Spirit of God is there everywhere and within you. And those dogmas are stopping people from finding it. That's why at this point I'll talk out about it. And I like the new people to know that, and to know the love that it takes to do that. I love the Bible so much that I got very angry when I started to really see in this life, when I started to wake up and see what they did. I remember picking it up at one point, even as a child, and some part of me knew that I was part of the biblical period, because most of us have incarnations in that period as well. And I was involved, as was, with the CDD plate translations during that period too. We knew the person called Jeshua. And I remember as a child having pieces of these memories, remembering like what I looked like but not my role and stuff. And I remember picking up a Bible and looking for something, and I leafed through it, and something caught my eye, and I can't remember what it was, but this energy moved up through me. I said, that's not what it said. That's not what it meant. And I whipped it across the room. And I went, scared myself. I was wondering, what the heck was that? I couldn't imagine why some part of me reacted so strongly to it. It made sense later, because it was where partial things of truth were taken, and they were woven into a way that actually did the opposite of what they were supposed to do. A statement that was said to give people power was said, and then something else woven with it to make that power go to the outside again, where there was just such a feeling of violation that it literally, my soul came up and just literally said, that's not what we translated. That's not what it meant. And the harm that those mistranslations have caused people. They keep calling themselves sinners and lowly, pathetic things. They worship dead people on crosses because they don't know anymore that the living Christ lives within them. And that's what Jesus taught them in the first place. Yet they give a lot of lip service to loving Jesus, but they don't know even what that means. And that's really sad. So we kind of burst that bubble, and a lot of people get mad at us for it. We can go on to the next one. I'm done. I was laughing at me. Now, this little diagram shows you basic structure of the DNA template. Now, as we know, science tells us we have 2 DNA strands. Actually, science is not seeing 2 DNA strands. It is seeing 2 heli. Now, the 12-strand DNA pattern, you wouldn't see 12 strands. You would always see an electrical heli and a magnetic heli, where it would look like the double, the double helix. But it's the levels, the layers of chemical coding, the nucleotide base pairs that form that make up the DNA, the steps on the DNA ladders. They progressively, as you activate one DNA strand, that would have a set of chemicals. Next DNA strand has another set, so the chemicals become more complex, and they keep building and building within the same double helix strand. So we're going to be changing our DNA. It's going to take a bit of time before it shows in a way that like science could stick your DNA under a microscope and see the changes. Some of them are already starting to happen, though. And that could be really dangerous if science had more time to really figure out what we're doing with all this spiritual running energy stuff, because they realize we're actually changing DNA, and then they realize that we're onto something. And most of those things are controlled by Illuminati. And they don't want people to know they have the power to heal themselves. Well, if they could heal themselves, then the pharmaceutical industries would go right down the tubes, wouldn't they? Imagine what would fall apart if people became empowered and nobody could control them from the outside anymore. That's the one thing that terrifies governments from all over this planet, because our power means we can't be exploited anymore. Our energy can't be taken. We can't be forced to do jobs we don't want to do anymore. When we find our spiritual calling, we tend to, no matter what the consequences are, that is more powerful than any material thing or material threat. And that is the biggest threat and always has been. This is why the Church of Rome went nuts. The Church of Rome was set up by the Roman Empire. They were on a territorial conquest attempting to take over the world on behalf of the draconian, Omicron draconian agenda. Now, when they set up the church, they set it up as a political front. All right? They had their government stuff going on, but they knew that they could control masses and masses of people by using a belief system that had pieces of truths that they already knew. They created what became the canonized Bible by taking pieces of those truths. This was during the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD. They put together this compilation of stolen records that were stolen from some of the Gray Lines that have been holding parts of the records to create something that would unify under the name of the Roman Empire masses of people, so they would not resist them when they went in to do more land conquest. Now, there's been rebellion since that. That's why we have Protestants and Catholics, this whole thing. We basically had the Omicron Draconians running the original Catholic agenda, and that really got the Illuminati races connected to the Anunnaki races very upset. So they did the Protestant movement. This polarity has been going on all the way through. You can take it into the founding of America. You can take it into our Civil War, where you had the Anunnaki Yankees up north, and you had the draconian rebels down south. This whole split has been not about our war. It hasn't been about conflicts between humans, but it's being played out between humans because there are Illuminati forces on the planet who are being guided, unknowingly guided, to serve the agendas of fallen ones from the black hole matrix. So at this point, we can just at least get a grip on the scope of what it's doing. Look at the history. There's a whole different way to look at the history that's right before us, so they're telling us it's true. Well, it's true, but they're hiding a lot of parts of it. This whole conquest that even we're going into right now, it really has never been a fight against the guardian races. It's been two races of beings who have fallen, who are fighting with each other, and we keep getting in both of their way, so they try to get us out of the way so they can go back at each other. And that's just what's happening again on the planet. But it's been all through our history, one race after another. We give a history. We'll maybe talk about some of it tomorrow, but in the Voyagers, Volume 2, 2nd edition book, some of that history is summarized, where you see the progressive since Atlantis, something called the Atlantean Conspiracy, the progression and the dates of the invasions of different race groups and how they literally took over the different 12 tribes of the human populations and turned them into mixed tribes and then gave those tribes their names. So anyway, we'll get back on to DNA. This is a DNA template. I want to show you something really quick here. Remember we talked about the shields, right? The telluric shield, that's the one that has the dimension 1, 2, and 3 frequencies. It goes to chakras 1, 2, and 3, and Kathara centers 1, 2, and 3. You have strands 1, 2, and 3. All right? These are considered the incarnate strands, the density 1 strands. They run the frequencies, and the chemicals that manifest from these templates run the frequencies of density 1. Okay? Strands 4, 5, and 6. Whoops, where am I? Strands 4, 5, and 6 run the density 2 frequencies of 4, 5, and dimensions 4, 5, and 6. They're the ones that are connected to the Doradic shield, right? The soul strands. All right. We have strands 7, 8, and 9. These are connected to the density 3 body, the Turic shield, the oversoul identity. So when you get these strands activated, when you get 4, 5, and 6 activated, you have soul integrated. That means you have brought the consciousness of your soul fully into body. When you get 7, 8, and 9 activated, you have brought your oversoul consciousness fully into body. And when you get 10, 11, and 12 activated, you have brought your avatar consciousness fully into embodiment, which is what humans were designed to do. In the Kathara healing system, we get into a little bit about the age progression. When the human body was working in the natural way, there was a series of ages by which those transitions were supposed to happen. And they literally get stopped when we enter at about between age 11 and 12 now. There's something called the death hormone that gets released in the body because of the template distortions that literally shuts down activation of any of these. So it blocks soul integration. And those frequencies try to come in, and they build up, and they begin to, because they can't, the receivers are blocked in the shields. They start to crush the shields. The higher frequency comes in, but the receivers won't open to hold it. So it's actually creating molecular compaction in the shield, which creates a progressive, it creates hormonal anomalies in the body that create progressive digression and falling apart of the body system itself. That's why we die. And that will change eventually once we get fully 12-strand activated and can hold a full strand activation. Yes?
Why is it throughout all this, it seems like as humans, why don't we have an agenda besides the innate in everybody else?
We do. We were sent here with an agenda.
We arrived too late.
No, we didn't arrive too late. We knew it would probably come to something like this before we even got into the game. Our agenda, our original creation agenda, why we decided to be created as humans in the first place, was because there was a need for a guardian race. There was a need for a race of guardians and healers that would come in and reset the divine blueprint in this particular universal system. And that meant a long stint in time. It meant dealing with a lot of garbage, and we knew that. And it meant taking on the mutation so we could possibly figure out how to heal it in them by healing it in ourselves. So we didn't accidentally trip into this. It was a conscious choice by a group of avatars who felt that they could make a difference. And because they'd already mastered, the matrix, they could manifest anything in their own worlds that they wanted. They saw the worlds that were in pain, and they wanted to help that. So that's why we're in the drama the way we are in it right now. It isn't by accident, and we're not being victimized. We allowed ourselves to experience the role of victimization and to take on the sickness so we could heal it in ourselves, so we could hopefully then heal it for the others. And we're not doing too bad. It could have gone better. There is a heroic probability where it worked out much better. But then there's this team of us that decided to go into the probability where it didn't work out well at all, so we could come back eventually into the heroic probability and bring the knowledge of what that meant. We have another part of ourselves that never got involved in the fall in the first place. And there will be a reunion at some point, but we'll be the Christos Founders races at that point. That's when we'll return to, see, we each have our incarnations, but also up in the densities. That means the Christos Founders races are us at that level, all right? The human consciousness and the indigo consciousness. So, there's others up there too that are Christos Founders races. But this means that, there are three Christos Founders races primarily in this particular time matrix. You have the Elohai Elohim, the Seraphai Seraphim, and the Brahmarama races. And the Elohai Elohim are what are called the keepers of the blue flame, which are the Emerald Order. They call them the Emerald Order. That's the Amareya flame guys. And you have the Seraphai Seraphim, which are keepers of the gold flame. They're keyed to D14 frequency. And you have the keepers of the violet flame, the Brahmarama, that are keyed to the D15 frequencies. But D13 frequencies, which are the keepers of the blue flame, the Elohai Elohim, Emerald Order people, that was the first primal light field that the other two came out of. So that is the one with the largest coding. So anyway, that's some of our family up there. And this is how we're connected to that family up there, through our DNA template. It's interesting, in your books I think I put a little bit on the Christos Founders races and some of the forms that they take, because there's some just like for your information stuff put in that particular book you've got. And it's reprinted from some other, it's published in a couple other places. But the forms that they have are very different. They don't all look human. The Christos Founders races were things like large hominid cats. The Elohai Elohim were the cat people. Some called them the Leonines. And they had other forms that became more hominid and more hominid as they went. The Seraphai they created the bird forms and some of the reptilian forms. All right. The Brahmarama created cetacean forms and several other, I believe the Pegasi as well, didn't they? Yeah, they did the Pegasi form, which, like horses and things like that came out of them. So there's these animal forms we see running around on our planet. They're connected to us too, and we're connected to them Because originally, the Christos founders races that we each have a manifestation of ourselves up there as one somewhere, didn't have, the human form wasn't the first form created in this matrix. It was a form that was created by combining the coding of all three of those in order to create a form that could hold the frequencies of the entire matrix, and also we would have the DNA that could heal anything living in this time matrix. So humans and indigos are the living libraries. We are the libraries of DNA of everything that has ever existed in this matrix. That's why we're very valuable, because anything, you can access anything through the human gene code if you understand the templates. So anyway, this is the diagram that explains the 12-strand, the basic of the 12-strand DNA template. Now, these things, each strand has 12, what are called 12 base codes and 12 acceleration codes. The base codes are like base magnetic E-ray codes. The acceleration codes that correspond with your antiparticle double are the base Manet codes. There's something called fire letters. All right. Now, fire letters, that is a word that's used to describe specific groupings of scalar wave chelons. Remember we talked about the chelons, the crystallized groups of scalar waves that form very specific mathematical coding. The fire letters are the specific groups of mathematical codings, and like a fish would have different ones than a human. That gives them the species differentiation. The human DNA template was created with each strand has 12 fire letters. It represents one fire letter sequence. So you have 12 fire letters in one strand times 12 strands equals 144 fire letters. All right, vector codes are smaller aspects we're not going to get heavily into, smaller aspects within the fire letter, smaller codes within, like if you're going to analyze a chelon, a fire letter chelon code, you would go down to smaller units, which would be called the vector codes. And there are 144 vector codes in each of the strands, and they're times 12. That's where you get 1728. Each of those vector codes is connected and holds the program for one of yourselves in time. So as we begin to activate DNA, we begin to activate the fire letters and the vector codes within them, which turns on the memory. But the memory is actually the open link between time, between that time period and who you are there and who you are here. It appears as memory because it's in a different space-time location, which means the body you have there has a different angular rotation of particle spin. So you are invisible to each other, and so are your worlds, but you are connected directly through your DNA. So your incarnational memory comes back as your DNA activates. Anyway, in pieces, and not always as fast as you want it to either. Yeah. All right, I'm not going to go too far in this. This is what's called the tribal shield that I spoke about. This is the basic mathematical, geometrical arrangement of the tribal shield part of our shield templates. It is also the geometrical configuration that when we are running the Templar manually. Now, in the ancient days, humans knew how to do this, and indigos, and we would do what were called the round tables, where people would stand in this particular formation, bodies. You'd have a body for each of those areas, and they'd stand in those very particular configurations in relation to each other, and they would use Merkaba science, which involved using the body to create amplified Merkaba spin, to amplify the amount of currents they were able to bring in, always under Maharic seal and bringing the higher currents, and together they would tone the tones of the shields, and they would progressively bring in more and more of the divine blueprint frequencies into the planet. This was the method by which humans and indigos were to heal the planet, because again, the DNA template and the shields, when it's opened to run the frequencies of D12, the divine blueprint, it can connect with the universal divine blueprint frequencies. So we would run round tables, and we would run them when stargates would open. If the gate was damaged and it couldn't hold the frequency of the gate opening, where it would blow the gate, we would actually run the rounds, and we would create almost like a temporary gate of frequency that could anchor that. The people on the planet were actually the conduits that would allow for the gates to open. And there's a whole Templar science built on understanding how to run the rounds. We were starting to do that until it went into Plan B. Then that we need to do other stuff now at this point. We were starting to heal the planet by running the rounds, and they were funny. The biggest one we had was how many? 70-ish? Yeah, that was the Calgary one, wasn't it? Yeah, the biggest one we had was in Calgary, where we had 70-some people standing up, doing Merkaba spin, which we will learn in the Dance for Life thing. It's called salutation, but we were doing it in the round formation, doing the tones, and building sound waves, standing pillars of sound. That's what it's about. And it's fun. It's a fun technology. It's kind of awkward when you watch people here do it. When you watch the Iyani do it, it's like a choreographed, an amazingly choreographed, totally everybody's in sync with each other with every movement, nobody's tipping over, that kind of stuff. Because they know how to build. They build sound columns this way. They heal planets this way. So this was the stuff in the Round Table stories too about Arthur, King Arthur and the Legend of the Round Table. Anyway, this is the tribal shield template. Basically shows you where these selves of yours are positioned in time within the planetary shield and the planetary time cycles. You have 216 selves, and this is also called, by the way, the cycle of the rounds, where it's the placement of your bodies in, of your 1,728 cells within a planetary round, or one planetary time cycle, or within a large planetary time cycle. There's actually 4 cycles. Cycle of the rounds. And we have 216 cells in round 1, which were the Palladia Urtite cloister races that were from 798,000 BC to 208,216 BC. So you have an incarnate. The fact that you're here implies you have a self in that race line in that time period. You also, in round, I always get my rounds nuts because I lose this here, right? Yeah, round 2, 216 cells in what are called the cloister races in 73,000 BC. These actually extend into the future, so some of them are in the future of this planet. You have round 3, which is this one somewhere, yeah, round 3, with the Urtite cloister races, 208,100 BC to 75,000 BC. And then you have 216 cells in round 4, which are root race rounds, 71,000 BC and into the future. This is on one side, and you have that. Let me do the totals going this way. This totals it up. Now, so you have each of the 12 planetary time cycles in one planetary 12 cycle of the rounds. So there are 12 of these positions, and then there's that center one. Now, all right, I'll just read this. Each of the 12 planetary time cycles in one planetary 12 cycle of the cycle of the rounds has 72 time vectors. 12-strand angelic humans have one self in each of the 72 vectors of the particle universe planetary 12 cycle and 72 selves in the corresponding antiparticle planetary 12 cycle. 72 selves times 12 planetary time cycles equals 864 selves per one planetary 12 cycle plus 864 selves parallel universe planetary 12 cycles. That's where you get your 1,728 cells in your own personal tribal shield. So we have all these selves in these different race lines that were on planet at those different times. There are some of us that are running around 7 to 12 feet tall. And we actually have incarnations that are there. They will help us, just like we will help them. We're helping them in the future, and they're helping us from the past. But the past is just alive, is just as alive as we are, and so is the future right now. So anyway, on to the next one. How am I ever going to get through all this stuff? Oh, I heard a groan. Oh. Yeah, there's probably one of the people who've been around a while. Like, oh no, not the atom. This is an atom. The things your body's made out of, right? An atom. This chart basically shows you, and I'm not going to go extensively into it, we cover it more in the Dance For program, but it's to show you all these 15 rays, the primal life force currents that are coming through your shields, how very personal they really are, and how very tangible they really are. These are literally, this is one atom, and these would be, each one of these is the dimensional frequency that would be manifesting in the atom if they were all turned on. Here is, again, the rays that we talked about, the 15 rays, the density 1, density 2, density 3, density 4. Here, the ones when you read them across this way, these are the carriers of the Ire, these are the carriers of the Mane, and these are the carriers of the Manu energies. Now again, we have ray 1, it's a D1 frequency, that's the Chi, right? Protons are the carriers of that. Now we have protons in cell structure, in atomic structure. All right. Ray 2, the Ki electrons. Well, we have those electrons are, orbit the nucleus of the cell where the protons are inside of it. We have also ray 3, D3, the ray frequencies are neutrons, and they're inside the atomic core, the nucleus of atoms. So literally, we're seeing, when science looks at protons, neutrons, and electrons, what they are seeing are the carriers of these 3 rays. What they're not seeing are the rays that are shut off, which means there would be more things in every atom that science looks at under a microscope if these frequencies were turned back on in the body. All of these things are actually blocked out. And this, we get into like how much of what was blocked out, so there's a little bit of that and a little bit of that. But these have different names. Again, when we go up to the density 2 ones, the prana, the units are myons, but they're density 2 protons, right? So if you read it over here, the top level, the 1, 4, 7, 10 ones are the carriers of the E-ray frequency, and they're all protons at different density levels. So really we're dealing with protons, electrons, and neutrons as the primary carriers of these ray currents into the body. And science here hasn't a clue about the 15 rays and all that stuff yet. But they change, like there would be a difference if you tried to look at a myon under a microscope compared to a proton. First of all, you wouldn't see it here, but you could see its effects. And science is already starting to find things that they know something must be there. They don't see the matter, but they can see the influence of its presence on other matter bodies within cells and things. So all of these currents have been primarily shut off. Now, some of them are partially on. Let's see, frequencies fully blocked are the ones D9 through D12, which means D9, 10, 11, and 12. These are completely blocked from manifesting in the atomic in the atomic structure. Frequencies that are half blocked with half of active currents mathematically reversed, D1 through 8. So D1 through 8 currents. They're half turned off, which basically gives you like a D4 equivalent current, but it's not a straight D4 current. This is literally an atomic mutation that everything that's made of atoms on this planet carries, not just humans, because the planetary shields are carrying it. But this has D1 through 8 are reversed, and they're half blocked, and half of them are carrying reversed mathematics. This is where the phantom matrix black hole people and the Wiesedat matrix black hole people can plug into our bodies. It's literally through the atomic structure. Those problems in the atomic structure are what are manifesting because of the reversals and the implants in the shields. So it's the shield distortions and the Cathara grid distortions that are manifesting their way up through the system, through the chakras, through the axiotonals, literally right in to the atoms that the matter is composed of here. When we begin to heal, we begin to reverse that process. So there's going to be some interesting changes happening on this planet the more it heals. Atoms are going to do things that science doesn't know they can do. The DNA is going to do things science doesn't know it can do. But there's probably going to be a lot of distraction in the meantime, where we're probably not going to hear about that anytime soon on the news, because they're going to be too busy throwing bombs at each other. At least if certain people have their way. Anyway, so this diagram, again, this one I think is just in the Dance 4 books. I don't think we put that. I don't know, do we put that in the other book? I'm trying to remember which one we put in, which ones we put in that, because that's the supplement, so you probably won't get a lot of this stuff that's in Dance 4 in that, because this is really a supplement to it. But again, it is the more intensive stuff on this is in the Dance 4 program. But at least it shows you the connection to all these things, your shields, your DNA, all that, right down into your atoms, the atoms that you're made out of. Now, at the center of every atom, there's supposed to be something called the neutron window. The neutron window is what activates and allows the gamma ray of flame to come up into the atomic structure, to begin blending those currents so the body can literally turn itself into light and back. Now, the neutron window in the hydrogen atom has been mutated out where it actually isn't in there, which means hydrogen, H2O, hydrogen. Hydrogen is a big part of our body. It's also the bond that holds the DNA ladder chains together. So it had blocked the ability, this mutation had blocked the ability to open the neutron window that isn't manifesting right now in the hydrogen atom, so the DNA couldn't activate to create the chemical changes in the body that were needed to blend all of these currents together so the body could turn into light. But that will begin to change too. It ought to be really interesting to see how long it'll take before science finds the first, it's a hydrogen atom, but it can't be hydrogen because it has neutrons in it. All right? There's going to be changes, literally, on the atomic structure that are going to take place on this planet. But I don't know how fast they're going to be apparent compared to how fast other crisis stuff is going to get in the way where science doesn't have time to bother looking at things like that. So, anyway, just wanted to show you this. There's more on this information, in the dance for programs. We can go on to the next one. I've got to get through this. All right, Merkaba. All right, this is going to be the quickest course in Merkaba you ever had. Because right now we're like Dance for, again, gets more into Merkaba because we're teaching you how to do some external, getting your external spin going to get the internal Merkabas working in the right direction and stuff. With the flame body activations, they're actually more important at this point to do those first than if you want to use the Dance for programs as a supplement to make things happen faster. And, to basically what they're saying is that if you just want to be able to ascend whenever your natural time to depart the planet through death is, just do the flame body activations. That'll get you out safe. But if you want to actually be able to take your physical body, do both programs. That's what they're suggesting. Because, and there's no promises that anybody's going to get through a gate. I mean, this could all go really wrong, but it's not going to, because failure is not an option. But anyway, Merkaba fields, basically, what I want you to see on here is that to understand a Merkaba field, they are around any matter object. You have a set of counter-rotating spirals of electromagnetic energy. And you have one coming down from the top and one going up from the bottom. Right now, the other Merkaba teachings on this planet have been teaching you to run your Merkaba in reverse. They've been teaching you to, they call this one, the top one, they call that the female. It's supposed to spin counterclockwise. That is not true. That is the electrical Merkaba that's supposed to run Mane energy into the body and down. It spirals energy, clockwise, down into the body. This one is the actual female one that spirals counterclockwise in a counterclockwise rotation, the Ire energy up. And not just into the body, up through the body and out into the universe. It's actually, this comes down, feeds it through into the planet, through you into the planet, and this spirals it up and out through you into the universe. And literally, it's the circulatory system by which the energy is the primal life force currents get moved into your template and into the rest of the things that that are built on your template and your shields. So it's the circulatory, kind of like the pump of the circulatory system that allows the primal life force currents to flow through your shields and all of that. The connection between the shields here, if you can see, that this shield, the actual shape of the Merkaba has to do with the shield activation levels. When you activate fully the telluric shield, it comes out here like this, and the shields spin and the Merkaba spin. They spin together. The shield spin creates the Merkaba spin. It creates the movement of the Merkaba. So each of these shields spin, and they generate they keep the circulation system of the Merkaba field going. Now, there's a lot to Merkaba. If we could look at this here too, this shows this funny little kind of lopsided diagram over here, shows the shields. This shows the Maharic shield down here. If you were looking at it without your body, here's the Merkaba, right? How it works in there. And the Maharic shield would be here running the D10, 11, 12 frequency. This would be your telluric shield running the D1, 2, 3 frequency. This would be the Doradic shield, the 4, 5, 6 frequency. And this would be the Turic shield, the D7, 8, 9 frequency. Now this thing here, this shield here, which is usually dormant until you get Maharic shield activated. And the process of usual evolution is you start with the density 1 shield that activates through the process of moving through a life as you're drawing in frequency with the breath and then exhaling it back out. It would be the slow evolutionary path, first activating this one, then this one, then this one. Then eventually this one would activate. What we're doing is manually activating, and we're allowed to do that. God gave us that system to use in case we needed to. We're manually activating this one, which triggers activation of all these, which triggers activation and building of the frequencies that form the Merkaba field around and within the body. There's lots of little Merkaba fields, literally all the way through the whole body system. It's called the dyadic grid, and that's something we get into in Cathar healing a little bit. They didn't give us too much on that, but it's like if you could look at even the DNA forms, when the DNA chemicals begin to talk to each other the way they're supposed to, when the hydrogen bonds between the ladder chains act like they're supposed to, they actually form. The chemicals come together and they form mini Merkabas within the DNA itself. So literally from the inside out, the body turns itself into light so it can go through gates. This is the Rishik shield, that goes with density 5, dimensions 13, 14, and 15. That would be the shield that would activate when you begin running the Key-Riche primal light currents. All right. There is another shield that we'll see in a little bit. Now this is what we call the baby Merkaba. Uh-oh, I think this one's going too. I keep burning out your lights. I'm sorry. Little tiny ones, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, well, I'll have to go back to fingers in a minute or two. Anyway, we call this the baby Merkaba. It's capable of going in two directions. It's a bivector Merkaba. It can go horizontally, and it can go vertically, but it can't shift this way. Now, if you remember the Eka maps, we have our stargates here. We have the parallel stargates there. That's horizontal, right? This is vertical. We have our primal light fields here. We have our parallel primal light fields here. But in that center that comes through from the connection of those 4 Cathara grids, we have that little inner Eka Cathara grid gate set. It runs on a diagonal compared to the rest. This Merkaba can't take you in there. You need one that's called a Triveka Merkaba, or an Akasha Merkaba, that has the ability to go to do 3 axis angles, not just 2. And that's what we're building when we do full 12-strand D12 and higher activation levels. Okay, we can go to the next one. I think that shows that a little bit. We can skip that one, I think, for now. Yeah. All right, this is what the 12-plane inner Earth Merkaba vehicle. This is the Masters, the Senate Masters, real ones, Merkaba vehicle. It's not just the little star tetrahedron shape, which would be the 2 pyramid shapes going together. This is actually built on, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. It's 12-point, and it has 12 planes, 6 on top and 6 coming up on the bottom. It's like a big umbrella. The bottom one is smaller, as it's supposed to be, and because the proportions that are actually supposed to be with the Merkaba fields has to do with how much Mane and how much Ire energy, what the Mane-Ire energy balances are. With the reverse Merkaba teachings that are out there, they're totally changing the balance of Mane and Ire as it runs through the system. And that's actually made the matter on this planet about 2/3 more dense than it's supposed to be. We're actually much more dense, physically dense, than we're supposed to be, and it's killing us. We're compacting. So when we begin to work with the Akasha Merkaba, we are getting the spins back, and the proportion, the shapes, have to do with what the proportions are supposed to be. When you first begin building it, you start with the little one that we saw on the other page that didn't have the big umbrella shape. And there's a ratio between the top and the bottom spin that is supposed to be 11 2/3 Ire energy coming up from the bottom for every 33 1/3 units of electrical energy or Mane energy coming down from the top. And when you take that ratio all the way up, it keeps the ratio stays consistent as you're building the Merkaba up the densities. That would be the natural density 1 and density 2. 33 1/3 would be the natural for the density 2, the top part of the electrical Mane part of the regular Merkaba field, and the 11 2/3 would be the natural part for the bottom in density 1. Those ratios have to do with literally the ratios between protons and electrons, because remember, they are the carriers of these forces. So when you change the spin and the spin direction and the spin ratios to each other of a Merkaba, you're changing the relationships between at the atomic core. You're changing the relationships between the primal life force currents and between protons, neutrons, and electrons within the body itself, within the matter itself. We're restored as we build the frequencies in our shields, activate our shields or DNA to build. This is the Merkaba field that's going to be building around the body and within the body. That will progressively begin the restoration of the natural 11 2/3 Ire to 33 1/3 Manet energy coming in. So this is what it will be the result of the work that we're doing. So it's like you can use techniques to do Merkaba that will help to activate the shields, activate the DNA, clear the chakras, get yourself in body. Or you can do a technique that will help get yourself in body. That will automatically do all the other stuff too. They all are intertwined. So when we work flame body activations, what we are doing is all of this. We are building the Merkaba at the same time. We're activating the shields, activating the DNA, la-di-da. The whole thing, it's all interconnected, which is nice. That means you don't have to do it all piece by piece. All right, next one. All right. Now, when this Merkaba is fully activated, when we get this fully activated, there's our Rishik shield. Remember the Rishik shield, the 13, 14, and 15 shield? Here's our Maharic shield, our Telluric shield, our Doritic shield, and our Turic shield. There's this other one. This is our Ionic shield that corresponds to the inner Eka core. That comes into activation, and that's what allows not just a vertical, you cannot just move vertically with that Merkaba, you cannot just move horizontally, but you can also move actually in any direction on the diagonal, because this, I'm losing the light, there we go. This one can actually go like this. So it can go in any direction on the diagonal. So this is the Merkaba that we're building. And a little left in there. That's all right. I'm going to have to go back to fingers. I should actually have like a stick. That would sticks don't burn out. All right. So the processes that we go through are progressively building this. And what this does is create in the field, the flame body, it creates around the body. See this thing around the body? And if you look at this shape with the Maharic shield, right, and this window that's called the Manu window, that opens up, that allows our bodies to move through space-time into other vectors. All right, but what does this shape look like? Yeah, the ancient Egyptian Ankh shape? Yeah, all right. So that has to do with the fields that form as a result of activating that Merkaba field and all of that. The capsules, what the body capsules do, what the auric field does. And from there, let's see, are we on flame? I'm not even going to go into that part yet. No, I'm going to go into radial body, right into radial body from, I'll save that for later. I think I'll do that later. Yeah, okay. Now, we'll go right into this. This will get us, right 8 o'clock. Okay. Now, bringing us back to our bodies. Right now, this is what our radial bodies are supposed to look like. Now this is before that Merkaba is activated in them. All right? This would just be as they were, as we're still separated in density. We have in here the Huva body levels of our auric field. They were the levels of the auric field that we saw. These would be the first three: the etheric body, the emotional, elemental body, and the mental body levels. Then there's this thing around the outside. That is the radio body that we've been talking about. It's like the skin. It's the capsule that separates this density from the next density level. Now, excuse me, there's a lot of information that is in the books that you can read on this, all right? We give you a lot of information. This is where your books pick up, when we get into understanding the basic radio body capsule. Thank you. That works, thank you. There we go. Okay. Now, the radio body has a basic structure. This is where we have the Miage field, which are Mijan units that are, I forget, they're D10 protons, E-ray carriers. All right. That would be the sound field. We have the Trion field, which are the Trion units that are the Manet carriers, which are the D11 electrons, or the density 4 electrons. It'll be around the next level out. And then we have what's called the Rheon field. The Rheon field is the Manu carrier frequencies. That's what creates the final outer skin, the void skin on the bubble. That if you're going to go through it, it actually looks like you're passing through a void, but it's actually the skin of your own radio bubble. And that the Rheons are the density 4 neutrons. All right, so you're dealing with a proton, electron, neutron field here, but a density 4 field, where they're called mesons, which creates the meage field, trions creates the trion field, and rayons, which creates the rayon field. Together, they represent the radio body. Now, there's this other area of energy right inside. It's actually quite thin, but I wanted to show up on the diagram. It's an area of energy that's polarized, that exists between the mental body level, the D3 mental body level, and the inner layer, the meage layer, or the sound layer of the radio body. Now, it's polarized D7 and D5 frequency. It's called the eros. When this becomes depolarized, it allows for a whole bunch of neat things to happen. First of all, it creates what's called the silver sanctum flame body, the first level of activating your flame body. It allows the chords. Now look at here, there's chords here. This is astral body. All right, what an astral body is, see this little cord here? There's a little area there that connects to a cord of energy that's usually closed by a seal. This is the cord you actually came into fetal integration through, but you come in through the top and anchor down into here. The cord of energy closes after birth, at least the way the mutation works right now. Now, when we begin to go into fourth strand activation, the seals start to open. There's other seals that I'll show you in a minute that are more pertinent. These are the density seals. This seal, when this seal begins to open, this cord begins to open, and it allows the consciousness to move into the D4, begin to move into the D4 frequency bands. Not quite up into D4 yet. It goes into the higher D3 frequency bands where it can cross through the radio body void space. It's the beginning of activating the full flame body that we'll see in a minute. The astral body itself is an imprint of the template of the body that is made out of the frequencies picked up in the trion meage field. So it's a radio body imprint, like a, like you said, I'm picturing a stamp pad. You have your body here, like that's the stamper, and you make an imprint of it. But it's an electromagnetic imprint, and so it takes on the characteristics of the physical body that you're carrying. And that is what the consciousness can transfer from the template here, move into the D4 frequencies with the imprint, and get to walk around and see other things as solid. All right? Now, remember, what we see as solid, what is exactly one dimension below our station of consciousness. If our consciousness is stationed in D3, what we're seeing as solid is the D2 elemental plane. That's what most of us have been seeing down here as the hologram. When you get up to here and you activate strand 4, it moves your consciousness into the fourth dimensional frequency bands. That allows you to see, not the astral plane yet, because the astral plane is D4, okay? When you first get strand 4 activated, the first thing your astral body is going to see isn't the astral plane at all. It's going to see D3, the mental plane. When you get up into further activations, there's other seals that we'll release that we'll get into. I can do it here, I think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, you can grow your astral body, which means you extend the imprint into D5 with activation of DNA strand template 5 and the shields that correspond to it. You will open up more of the cord that allows you to shift the consciousness and to make a fifth dimensional imprint. So you're getting the radio body imprint from here and from the radio body in density 2. Make a fifth dimensional imprint. That would allow you to see the D4 astral plane as solid. Now, when you get all the way up to where you have D6 strand activated, if the templates are working the right way, you would be able to see, you would be able to take the whole density 1 template up with you. Or you could just project and you would see the density 2 elemental plane as solid. That's when you would have the full physical experience of density 2. So the astral body is this little part of ourselves that begins to form with activation of DNA strand template 4 and 5. You can see the astral plane and walk around in the astral plane when strand 5 activates. But most people, even when they're projecting, they don't know the difference with that. There's a lot of stories, oh, we're astral projecting. Most people that think they're astral projecting are actually mental plane projecting, because they can't tell the difference yet. They don't know the anatomy, and they don't realize, the strand connections and things like that. When you get 6 strands activated, the strands have this thing we didn't get into with the strand template. We don't really have to. It's called DNA strand template braiding, where there are fire codes in between each strand that when the strands activate to a certain level, when a set of 3 strands activate, the fire codes in between them activate. And there are fire codes that are in the shields as well. And they allow for chemical braiding of the DNA strands, where they produce new chemicals, a chemical called celestylene. And it's a transient chemical that only appears in the process of transmutation. And it has a very short, I think, half-life they call it or whatever. It disappears very quickly. That would happen in the DNA once you got 3 strands and 3 strands activated, which means you'd have the ability to go 2 densities. Your body would have the ability to move through 2 densities. Now, as you go up the strands, if you have 9 strands activated, you have the ability to move 3 densities, to literally physically go 3 densities. If you have 12 strands, you can go 4 densities, which means you can go to density 4 pre-matter liquid light, which means you can completely go out of matter if you want to, and further up with indigos. If you're not born with an indigo template down here, that doesn't matter. Doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you would get yourself to like the D12 level, and then you have another part of your shield there, but it wasn't a part that you manifested in the lower shield because you decided you didn't want to do that. I mean, if we come in with only 12 strands as opposed to having 48 strands or something, the 48 stranders are the old timers that came in and say, oh God, we still got to clean up the mess down here, don't we? They're totally on service contracts, which means they have free will, but they gave their free will back and said, let my will be thy will, and let my work be thy work, and let thy work be good. So anyway, we're back to this again. This is the beginning of understanding flame bodies, because what's going to happen when we activate certain things and begin the release of seals, first seal we're going to release is this, which is going to release this. It's going to begin opening this cord again, so it's going to begin giving you the ability, and it won't happen overnight, but it'll begin giving you the ability to project, do mental body first projection, and it'll feel like astral projection. All right, it feels the same way, but you'll start to learn after a while, when you start to get out there, you'll start to feel different qualities of energy, and you'll start to be able to sense which dimensional frequency bands you're actually moving through when you're doing it, but that takes a while. First, you got to get out there. All right, what this will also do is depolarize this zone here, the eros, and allow it to turn into pale silver Christos liquid light, D7, 7, plus 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It turns into D12 frequency. What it does is give you a capsule that it's an Akasha-shaped capsule that connects up to the next seal of liquid light surrounding the body in the field. And that's the first step in the flame body, and that would be your density 1 capsule. There's another stage where where the density 2 capsule would form, and then you would finally form a capsule around them that allowed the 2 to open. When we get into Amareya flame activation, that's what we're doing. We're first going to depolarize the eros level of our density 1 bodies to create what's called the silver sanctum, which is around. It's like the holy sanctum, sacred place, and it is a very strong protection field. It's like an amplified Maharic seal, and once that is built, we can run the frequencies that will build the Amareya flame body, which is these 3 levels of the radio body depolarize, and they turn into the emerald flame of Amareya. Remember we talked about that being that center point flame way up at the top of the stairway? All right. Well, this is how to turn ourselves into walking Amareya flames, walking faces of the eternal flame. And our bodies stay. But progressively as you move through this, right now we're doing it on emergency, for emergency reasons, for protection and also to help the planet. But when you get to play with this after a while, there's all sorts of wonderful things you can learn to do once those frequencies are activated. But they don't get activated overnight. It's a building process. And if you don't work with the technique, if you don't keep energizing your shields to hold the activation, they'll shut down again because the planetary grids are messed up. They're not going to hold the activation for you. So fortunately, the techniques that we have to get through, they're a bit long. And we have, today and tomorrow to get through all of them. But once you're through them, When you go to the next technique, technique 8, that is in your books, after 4 to 6 weeks of letting those activations hold, if you do the real simple maintenance thing, it's a lot easier than even Maharic seal. It will hold the flame body activations, which will hold up a Maharic seal. It will keep the Maharic seal alive, so you don't have to run it anymore. So they're really, really powerful activations. I'll show you what happens. I think we have the next one, please. Now this is the Silver Sanctum one, right? Yeah, the Flame of Eros and the Silver Sanctum. So when that Eros field that was here in this body down here, now this is the density 2 one, right? We're on density 1 body. That Eros depolarized and becomes a pale silver bubble of liquid light, your first Akasha bubble. But you still have the polarized levels out here, right? But you have this, it keeps the Maharic seal activated. It opens this doorway. It opens the seal that was there, and the seal that's actually there. It's called the Dimensional Lock Seal 3, and it's a strand 4 activation when you're doing it in the DNA template. Once that seal releases, the Eros depolarizes, you get your Silver Sanctum bubble, and this cord opens. It's called the Eumbi cord, E/UMBI cord. That's one of those ancient words again, and it's right above above the navel, right? Right above it, yeah, just above the navel. And it's a little flame that actually activates in the shield, right there, right, in the telluric shield. Now there's an exercise we'll do to do this, to activate this first, and then the next stage, oh, and it also, by the way, when this happens, you get a protective capsule around the astral body. It would give it an imprint of the Eros flame body. This is called the Eros flame body, or the Silver Sanctum. So you get a little Silver Sanctum also surrounding the astral, the imprint that would be the traveling body. But still, you would only be going to see the mental plane as solid until you went to strand 5 activation. Now, let me show them the other one, the Amareya flame, please. This is what we're aiming for.